The Throne of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 851, Wealthy. I'm sorry, Krissa. Master may not be able to take you to travel around the Starry Sea. Xia Xingchen looked apologetic. Xingchen, what are your plans? Popovich was a little surprised. Aren't you going to send your father to the Coffin Star? Dad, two uncles, Carissa. I'm sorry, I have something very important to do, and I have to go to the Sakhalin Star region. Xia Xingchen looked at Popovich and Lester. Please ask the two uncles to help me and send Carissa and my father to the Coffin Star. The Coffin Star. I have admired it for a long time, but I have never had the chance to go there. Popovich thought for a while and said, it's just sending someone, a small thing with a little effort. I also happen to go to the Coffin Star to see it. I heard that your Xia Xingchen Mecha and Carissa's Thunder Mecha are both new mechas manufactured on the Coffin Star. Maybe I can create a new Magneto on the Coffin Star. Lester also nodded. I heard that Doctor He has also arrived at the Coffin Star and was hired as a professor of medicine. I just happened to go over to him for a drink. Popovich and Lester both agreed very readily. Xia was naturally worried about his son's safety. He grabbed Xia Xingchen's hand and told him, Xingchen, there is war outside now, and the world is not peaceful. You must be careful in everything. Dad, don't worry. I know my limits. Xia Xingchen felt warm in his heart. Only Carissa was not satisfied and pouted, unhappy. Master doesn't accompany Carissa back. Carissa is unhappy. Carissa, Master promises you, as long as I finish my work, I will go back to you immediately. During this time, you should learn martial arts from old man Lester. He is a martial arts master, proficient in martial arts in the world, and teaches much better than me. Xia Xingchen persuaded. That won't work either. Carissa turned her back, tears welling up in her red eyes. I'll bring you delicious food. Every time I pass a planet, I will find the most delicious food on that planet and bring it back to the Coffin Star for you. Xia Xingchen coaxed. Really? Carissa burst into laughter and made a pinky promise with Xia Xingchen. Whoever lies is a dog. The location marked on the star map is located in the Sakhalin Starfield. It is now the front line, and the war is raging. Xia Xingchen thought again and again, and asked Bielsa to drive the evil thought to send Carissa, Popovich, Lester, and Xia back to the Coffin Star, and let the evil thought temporarily stand by on the Coffin Star, waiting for him to come back. Xia Xingchen took the starship of the 3rd Fleet to the front line and headed for the Sakhalin Starfield. After seeing off Popovich and others, Yeo Yuan and Hao Cheng also came to say goodbye. The Starry Sea is vast, and the encounter is short. I don't know when we will meet next time. Hao Cheng and Xia Xingchen hugged each other tightly. It won't be too long. I have to return to Xianyuan Star as soon as possible to marry Princess Crossing. Even if I forget you, I will never forget my fiancé. Xia Xingchen joked to dilute the sad atmosphere of parting. You are a guy who values women over friendship. Hao Cheng reached out and punched Xia Xingchen in the chest. Although Hao Cheng said that Xia Xingchen valued women over friendship, in fact, he knew very well that Xia Xingchen was extremely sentimental and loyal and was a real man. Men, naturally, would not be fussy. After saying goodbye, Hao Cheng and Yeo Yuan left on the Saxon starship. General von Klausch came over in person and told Xia Xingchen that the starship to the front line had been arranged and could set off at any time. Before leaving, Xia Xingchen went to Li Xiaomin to say goodbye to him. The collar on Li Xiaomin's neck had been taken off, and he was free again. He changed into a new set of clothes, took a shower, and looked much better. You are leaving so soon. Li Xiaomin was a little surprised. The situation is pressing. I can't do anything. Xia Xingchen shrugged his shoulders. You are going to the front line. It's very dangerous there. Be careful. Li Xiaomin didn't say much. Back then, Xia Xingchen dared to go deep into the heart of the Northern Empire alone, which shows how daring he was. Well, the reconstruction of Luban Star is now in your hands. I really don't have time, otherwise I would definitely stay to help. Xia Xingchen nodded. By the way, Since you are going to the front line, I just happen to have something to give you. Li Xiaomin said. What is it? Xia Xingchen was a little curious. As the third son of the Tang Dynasty group, Li Xiaomin had a prominent family background. The things he gave must be expensive. I heard that you designed and manufactured a new mecha named Xia Xingchen. The performance is extremely amazing. But the only drawback is that you don't have a suitable weapon. Li Xiaomin said with a smile. Xia Xingchen drove the Xia Xingchen mecha, and the battle on Luban Star had been widely spread through the surviving mecha divisions. Now on the Empire Skynet, there are many analyses of Xia Xingchen and the strength of the Xia Xingchen mecha. Naturally, this information also reached Li Xiaomin's ears. There really is no suitable weapon. Xia Xingchen nodded. I grabbed a bow before, named Shooting Sun. It is a melee-level weapon, barely usable, but not very convenient. That bow is a replica, it doesn't work at all. Li Xiaomin immediately laughed. The original Shooting Sun bow is in my hand. If you want it, I will give it to you directly. The original Shooting Sun bow. Xia Xingchen licked his lips. The Tang Dynasty group was really rich. The estimated value of the Shooting Sun bow was more than 50 billion. Li Xiaomin was too generous to give it away. Forget it. I'm not used to longbows. I still don't want it. Xia Xingchen thought for a while and refused. The Xia Xingchen mecha is not a long-range mecha. Strengthening skills are also more suitable for close combat. If possible, Xia Xingchen still wants to use the floating cannon of the Dragoon system. His mental clone is very comfortable with weapons similar to the floating cannon. However, the floating cannon emits laser beams to attack, which is completely restrained by the god's refined gold. A handy weapon is indeed difficult to find. This is also the reason why Xia Xingchen has been reluctant to equip the Xia Xingchen mecha with weapons. Good weapons are hard to come by. How about this? Send your Xia Xingchen mecha to the mecha manufacturing workshop of Tang Dynasty Group first, and use God's refined gold to make the shell. Of course, I will pay for all the expenses. If you don't even agree to this, be careful that I will be angry with you. Li Xiaomin knew that Xia Xingchen was originally going to use God's refined gold to make the external armor of the Xia Xingchen mecha. This is also one of the purposes of Xia Xingchen's coming to Luban Star. It was just bad luck that a riot broke out on Luban Star, which delayed the matter. The Xia Xingchen mecha is 9 meters tall, and the external armor is all made of God's refined gold. The cost of nano crystal ore is not a small amount. The son of the sun mecha of Andre, the regent of the north, is made of God's refined gold all over the body, which cost hundreds of billions of star coins, and emptied Nicholas's small treasury. Chapter 852 Craftsmanship. Xia Xingchen is taller than the son of the sun, and costs more money. However, Li Xiaomin didn't care at all. His expression was as relaxed as if he had bought an ice cream cone. In his words, money, I have plenty. This made Xia Xingchen speechless, but he couldn't refute it. After all, Tang Dynasty Group is the #1 consortium in the Milky Way. Taking advantage of the gap in upgrading Xia Xingchen, Li Xiaomin took Xia Xingchen to an underground research institute located on the main star of Luban Star. The research institute covers a large area of more than 10,000 hectares. Because the underground research institute is located on the desolate main star of Luban Star, it has not been destroyed by Athena. In the research institute, you can see many researchers wearing white robes and walking in a hurry. The whole atmosphere is very similar to Lingji Star. This is the second-ranked research institute in the Milky Way. Li Xiaomin's tone is very proud. Xia Xingchen doesn't need to ask, knowing that the #1 research institute in the Milky Way is of course Lingji Star. In terms of scale, this place ranks second, but it is not as big as Lingju Star. However, the Royal Research Institute of Lingju Star is a comprehensive research institute. It studies everything. Li Xiaomin explained, but the Luban Star Research Institute, it only studies one thing, that is, mecha. So, if we talk about mecha research institutes, this is the well-deserved first in the galaxy. Mecha, first. Xia Xingchen felt a surge of blood boiling. This is the holy land that every mecha master yearns for, and he himself is now in it. Xia Xingchen and Li Xiaomin, through the glass window of the vertical elevator, saw countless researchers and technical workers in the institute, busy in thousands of workshops. There are countless mechas in the workshop, and hot welding sparks are splashing everywhere. Most of these mecha models are military mechas that Xia Xingchen is very familiar with. There are also some new mechas that he has never seen. Xia Xingchen felt that his palms were itchy and wanted to go down to drive the mecha to experience it and have a taste. In the end, Xia Xingchen still held back. Because this research institute is so huge, it almost encompasses all types of mechas in the entire galaxy. It is simply a mecha exhibition hall. Xia Xingchen does not have time. Li Xiaomin saw the desire in Xia Xingchen's eyes and said with a smile, "Are you surprised now? When we get to the core area later, I'm afraid your eyes won't be enough to see." Xia Xingchen smiled and said, "Lingji Star studies cutting-edge technology, and those researchers are too bookish. I don't like it very much. However, the atmosphere here is different from Lingji Star. I see that the people here are very motivated and enthusiastic. It's different. The people on Lingji Star are researchers and scientists, but most of the people here are technicians." Li Xiaomin said, "You are right. Lingji Star studies the latest technology, and they worship the technology itself. However, Luban Star Research Institute pays more attention to the spirit of craftsmanship. Everyone here is a craftsman, not just a theorist who talks about it on paper. Luban Star, named after Luban, promotes this spirit of craftsmanship. The spirit of craftsmanship. Xia Xingchen himself is a mecha repairman, which is what Li Xiaomin calls a senior technician. Therefore, he was deeply touched. When he was at Lingjiu Star, Xia Xingchen always felt out of place. But at Luban Star Research Institute, Xia Xingchen felt very comfortable, as if he was in his element. Because, after all, Xia Xingchen is not a researcher, but a doctor, a craftsman working on the front line. Scientists study theories and create and discover new technologies. Craftsmen are responsible for applying these technologies. They make technology no longer a castle in the air, but truly benefit the people. In fact, to some extent, craftsmen are more important than scientists. Of course, the two are not completely opposite. Many scientists are also craftsmen themselves. Li Xiaomin said. Xia Xingchen nodded in agreement, such as Hao Xian. He is not only a scientist, but also a craftsman. Hao Xian is responsible for all the work in the laboratory. Hao Xian is not at ease when others do it. The elevator continued to go down. Xia Xingchen and Li Xiaomin came to the core area of the research institute. The atmosphere here is different from the area above. It is closer to Lingjiu Star. Li Xiaomin introduced. This is the core area, which focuses more on research. By the way, Xingchen, do you know how the new weapons on the mecha are designed? Li Xiaomin's words really stumped Xia Xingchen. He had never thought about this aspect of the problem. After hesitating for a while, Xia Xingchen said, "I don't know the details. It should be improved on the basis of the original weapons. Yes, most of them are improved. But, those really powerful weapons are brought out by some adventurers from some ancient alien ruins, and then sold to the Tang Dynasty group. We have copied the weapons after technical analysis." Li Xiaomin explained. "For example, your sun-shooting bow was made in this way. Alien ruins." Xia Xingchen's heart tightened, and his brows frowned slightly. He thought of the starry sky coordinates left by Athena, where there is an ancient celestial ruins. "Yes. What do you feel when you use the sun-shooting bow?" Li Xiaomin asked. "It is very powerful and the effect is incredible." Xia Xingchen said truthfully. "What else?" Li Xiaomin asked. "Also, it will resonate with my mental power, and every attack will consume mental power." Xia Xingchen thought for a while, and remembered another important point. "That's right. This kind of weapon will consume the user's mental power. Therefore, we call this kind of weapon a mental weapon. Even if it is a replica, it has great power, and the lowest rating is A." Li Xiaomin explained. "However, with the current technology of human beings, we can't understand the principle of mental weapons at all, so we can only imitate them mindlessly." "You mean, these weapons are left by aliens?" Xia Xingchen whispered. He thought of the Manco people. This powerful race was once the overlord of the galaxy more than 1 billion years ago, but now the entire race has been wiped out. "Xingchen, have you ever thought about a question? Our world is a bit empty?" Li Xiaomin suddenly asked a strange question. "Empty? What do you mean?" Xia Xingchen didn't quite understand. "I mean aliens. The Milky Way is so big, why did humans conquer it so easily?" Yes, there are alien life forms on many planets in the Milky Way. But, you also know that the technological level of these alien life forms is not as good as that of humans, so they are easily conquered. Only in the Savage Star region, there are some alien races resisting. Don't you think this is weird? Lee Xiaomin was a little excited and waved his hands. Are humans born strong? Is human technology developing too rapidly, surpassing all alien races? Impossible. Human brain capacity is not high, and the body is not strong. Why are humans the overlords of the galaxy? Chapter 853 Alien Relics. Maybe the Milky Way is too desolate and unsuitable for life to evolve. Xia Xingchen actually thought about this question when he was young and in school. However, he later felt that this unanswered question was a bit illusory, so he stopped thinking about it. What about the alien relics scattered throughout the Milky Way? From the data here, it shows that the Milky Way was once extremely prosperous, with more than 1,000 races living there, and their technological level was not inferior to that of humans. Lee Xiaomin retorted, now, these intelligent races have all disappeared, vanished into thin air. Only those relics are left. Life is like this. In the long river of time, it is just a small wave in the powerful race. Xia Xingchen thought of the Mank people again and sighed. No, it's not just time. Lee Xiaomin shook his head slightly, biting his lip, and did not continue. The elevator stopped and reached the bottom floor of the institute. Snap. The lights turned on. Xia Xingchen found himself in a huge space of 20 square kilometers. There were countless neatly arranged glass cabinets in the space, displaying alien relics of various sizes and shapes. Xia Xingchen took a breath of cold air. There were too many alien relics. This is our Li family's collection of 800 years. Lee Xiaomin walked to a glass cabinet beside him, opened it, took out a rusty iron block from it, and tossed it gently in his hand. Of course, most of them are useless garbage like this. There is no research value. But, I had an impulse again, and did a test on these items, which is the simplest age test. Guess what I found? What did you find? Xia Xingchen asked. I found most of these alien relics come from the same time period, either before or after, with a difference of no more than 300 years. Of course, there are a few older ones, but not many. Do you know what this means? Lee Xiaomin whispered. Fault. Life fault. Xia Xingchen's face changed, his eyes were astonished, and he finally understood what Lee Xiaomin meant. If Lee Xiaomin's test results are correct, according to the information provided by these alien relics, the Milky Way was extremely prosperous and full of vitality a long time ago, and many alien intelligent races lived there. However, at a certain time period, all these intelligent races disappeared. It's not just the Manko people who perished. All the intelligent races in the entire galaxy perished. This situation is called life fault, which usually occurs on a single planet. There have been many life faults on ancient Earth. The most famous one is the mass extinction of dinosaurs. If it is a planet, or a star region, even a star field, it is possible that a race will be extinct due to natural disasters. For example, a star suddenly explodes, or even because of some irresistible powerful force. The journey of life evolution is full of dangers and difficult. Not only do we have to deal with external dangers, but we also have to deal with internal crises. However, the entire Milky Way is so large that thousands of intelligent races with different life states and different technological levels, distributed in every corner of the starry sky, all became extinct within 300 years. Then there is only one answer: war. In Xia Xingchen's mind, there are only two words that can destroy the intelligent races in the entire Milky Way: celestial beings. Only celestial beings have this ability. Xia Xingchen suddenly felt a chill on his back, and the hairs on his body stood up one by one. The Celestials had destroyed the Milky Way once, wiping out countless races. Now, are the Celestials going to do it again? Yes, the life fault. But I haven't figured out the reason yet. Lee Xiaomin touched his head and smiled awkwardly. Lee Xiaomin doesn't have a quasi-celestial friend like Carlos, and his knowledge is not as broad as Xia Xingchen. However, he can make a pretty accurate guess from these alien relics, which is already very impressive. Xia Xingchen didn't explain to Lee Xiaomin. Crisis will cause panic. The truth, the fewer people know the better. The Tang Dynasty group has collected alien relics for 800 years, most of which are useless garbage. However, there are also some alien relics that contain super technology that humans have not been able to spy on until now. The Tang Dynasty group classifies these alien relics according to the level of technology and places them in different areas. Xia Xingchen and Li Xiaomin took a mobility scooter and came to the A-level area. The original version of the sun-shooting bow is also in this place. The alien relics in the glass cabinets were basically free of rust and looked as good as new. It was obvious that they were so technologically advanced that even time could not leave any traces on them. Most of what's here are weapons. I have a catalog here, you can pick one that's handy. Li Xiaomin handed Xia Xingchen a personal terminal. Okay. Xia Xingchen nodded and took the personal terminal that looked like a tablet. There were more than 100 glass cabinets in the A-level area, which were densely packed. Moreover, these alien relics came from different civilizations, and the technological level was unknown. It was extremely difficult to pick out weapons from them. Xia Xingchen's finger swiped across the personal terminal. He only needed to swipe across the glass cabinet, and the basic information of the alien relics inside would appear on the screen. Unfortunately, these basic information were only a few sentences, and the words were vague. It seemed that even after 800 years, the Tang Dynasty group had not fully studied these mysterious alien relics. With so many alien relics, it was all up to luck to find a weapon that was handy. Xia Xingchen really didn't have time, but he didn't want to leave hastily and give up this great opportunity. This time, Xia Xingchen will go to the Shinran ruins in the Sakhalin Star region, which must be full of dangers. With weapons, safety will be greatly improved. Xia Xingchen looked at Li Xiaomin on the side. However, Li Xiaomin was also helpless and could only shrug and spread his hands. Xia Xingchen knew that Li Xiaomin was not deliberately making things difficult for him. He really couldn't help. For the universe, humans are still ignorant babies. There are too many mysteries in the universe waiting for humans to explore. Since that's the case, just rely on luck. Xia Xingchen thought carefully and found that there was nothing to be embarrassed about. Although he didn't know the function of these alien relics, he could just look at the shape. Xia Xingchen's mecha weapon has always been a long sword, so he only needs to choose a sword weapon. Thinking of this, Xia Xingchen walked to the glass box and quickly scanned it. At this time, the black cat Xia finally slept enough. I don't know, when he slipped out of Xia Xingchen's mental space and squatted on his shoulder, washing his face with his fleshy little cat paws. How did you get out? Xia Xingchen was stunned. His mental space was a completely closed independent space. Only with Xia Xingchen's permission could one enter or leave. However, this black cat Xia came out of the mental space without Xia Xingchen's consent. This was really weird. Chapter 854 Little Thief Cat. Xia, let me introduce myself. My name is Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen remembered that Xia had been sleeping and probably didn't know who he was. Although Xia looked like a cat, it was actually an intelligent life created by Carlos. Therefore, Xia Xingchen didn't treat Xia as a pet, but as his friend. Xia was a black kitten with a black body and only 4 snow-white paws. It was only the size of a palm and looked very cute. With a pair of big blue eyes, it stared at Xia Xingchen for a long time, meowed twice, and rubbed its little head on Xia Xingchen's neck, looking very intimate. Xingchen, are you talking to a cat? Li Xiaomin walked over with surprise on his face. Haha, a friend gave it to me. Xia Xingchen laughed and didn't explain too much. Female friend? Be careful, that Princess Crossing will be jealous. Li Xiaomin smiled and saw that Xia was very cute and couldn't help but reach out to touch its little head. Meow. Xia was originally very friendly, but suddenly his expression changed and he looked very fierce. His hair stood up and he bared his teeth and bit Li Xiaomin's finger fiercely. Ouch. Li Xiaomin retracted his hand as if he had been electrocuted, but his finger had been bitten by Xia, leaving a bloody mark. Xiaomin, are you okay? Xia Xingchen looked at Xia with a complaining look, but Xia still glared at Li Xiaomin. It's okay, it's okay. I'm not big, but I have a big temper. Li Xiaomin didn't dare to touch Xia again and muttered to himself and walked away. After Li Xiaomin walked away, Xiaoka returned to his cute appearance, walking around on Xia Xingchen's shoulder, rubbing his head against his neck, which made Xia Xingchen very itchy. You little thing. Don't bite people randomly in the future, otherwise I will lock you up. Xia Xingchen whispered a lesson. Meow. Xiaoka cried out in grievance, hanging his little head, obviously understanding what Xia Xingchen said. Seeing Xiaoka's pitiful appearance, Xia Xingchen felt soft-hearted and apologized. My tone was a bit harsh just now. Don't take it to heart. You are my friend. I'm sorry. Xiaoka was happy then, meowing and rubbing Xia Xingchen's neck with his little head. Stop making trouble. I don't have much time. It's not easy to pick out a suitable weapon from so many alien relics. Xia Xingchen walked to a glass cabinet and found a shuttle-shaped weapon with an ancient shape, which was very similar to a long sword. His eyes lit up immediately. Unable to wait, Xia Xingchen took the shuttle-shaped weapon in his hand and gestured a few times. Meow, meow. Xiaoka squatted on Xia Xingchen's shoulder, shaking his head and whispering. Xia Xingchen was surprised. Xiaoka, do you mean that this weapon is not good? It's not suitable for me? Xiaoka nodded his little head vigorously. Do you know the purpose of these alien relics? Xia Xingchen suddenly remembered that Carlos shared all his database with Xiaoka. In other words, who does Xiaoka really know the use of these alien relics? With this thought in mind, Xia Xingchen opened his mouth in surprise. Meow, meow. Xiaoka called out twice with pride, ran down Xia Xingchen's arm, and touched a pattern on the shuttle-shaped weapon with his little paw. Swish. A red light shot out from the tip of the shuttle-shaped weapon, and a small red dot appeared on the wall. However, it had no killing power at all. Xia Xingchen also saw that this shuttle-shaped weapon was not a weapon at all. It was a part of a star navigation device. After nearly 1,000 years of research on alien relics, the Tang Dynasty group has not mastered all the uses. It just looks like a weapon, so it is placed in the category of weapons. Ignorance. So terrible. Xia Xingchen was embarrassed. If he went to fight with a star navigation device, he would really have lost several lives. Xiaoka really knows the use of these things. Xia Xingchen looked at Xiaoka, who was washing his face with a cat's paw, and felt excited. Xiaoka, is this weapon okay? Xia Xingchen pointed to a huge long-handled battle axe in the glass case. This must be a weapon. However, Xiaoka shook his head and looked unconvinced. Xia Xingchen continued to walk forward, pointed to a spherical weapon in the glass case, and continued to ask, what about this one? Xiaoka still shook his head. Xia Xingchen had no choice but to continue looking. Time passed quickly. Under Xiaoka's guidance, Xia Xingchen searched the entire A-level weapon area, but couldn't find a suitable weapon. Xiaoka, aren't you too picky? I'll just find a weapon that's handy, and I'll just use it. Xia Xingchen didn't have much time left, so he urged. Xingchen, have you found a suitable weapon? The Mecha workshop informed me that your Xianheng Mecha, the God's Gold external armor, has been completed. Li Xiaomin shouted not far away. So fast. The Tang Dynasty group is really efficient. Xia Xingchen was delighted and urged Xiaoka, just help me pick a weapon. My requirements are not high. I'm more comfortable with long swords. Meow meow. Xiaoka nodded, jumped off Xia Xingchen's shoulder, and ran into the gap between the glass cabinets and disappeared. After a while, Xiaoka came back, dragging a black bracelet with his two front paws, looking very tired. Xia Xingchen walked over quickly and picked up the black bracelet. It's so heavy. Xia Xingchen immediately felt that the bracelet was very heavy and cold. It didn't look like metal, but like obsidian. Holding the bracelet in his hand, Xia Xingchen looked at it over and over again, but couldn't see anything. He wondered, Xiaoka, is this a weapon suitable for me? Why can't I see it? Meow meow. Xiaoka nodded heavily and gestured with his two paws desperately, trying to teach Xia Xingchen how to use a bracelet. However, Xia Xingchen couldn't understand and was confused. Xingchen, it's almost time, shall we go? At this time, Li Xiaomin came over and saw the black bracelet in Xia Xingchen's hand. He was stunned, and his face became very strange in an instant. He asked in a trembling voice, Xingchen, where did you get this thing from? Xia Xingchen asked curiously, what? Is there any problem? Li Xiaomin looked a little excited. If I'm not mistaken, this black bracelet is the most important research object of Lu Bangxing Research Institute. It should be locked in the safe in the S-level area. Only I and a few people in the Li family can open the safe. How did you get it? Xia Xingchen looked at Xia with astonishment in his eyes. Just a few tens of seconds ago, could Xia sneak into the safe of Lu Bangxing Research Institute without anyone noticing and steal this black bracelet? He is simply a little thief. Chapter 855 Weapons and Magical Weapons. Xia didn't take it seriously and meowed as if to ask for credit. Wait, let me check it out. Li Xiaomin turned and left. After 10 minutes, he came back with a strange look in his eyes and looked at Xia Xingchen. Yes, this black bracelet is the thing in the safe. Since it is such a valuable thing, I will give it back to you. Xia Xingchen handed the black bracelet to Li Xiaomin. Li Xiaomin didn't take it and shook his head and said, although such a thing is important, if you want it, our Li family will not be stingy. I have just talked about this with the family leaders. The family unanimously agreed to give you the black bracelet. Alas, I have to say that you have a sharp eye. Indeed, this is the best weapon, and the family has to grant special permission. Xia Xingchen was very surprised. Is this a weapon? What kind of weapon is it? This thing is called the magic weapon in the Lu Bangxing Research Institute. It is the original version of the magic weapon. I don't know how much more powerful it is than the replica. Li Xiaomin explained. Magic weapon, a bracelet. Why is it called such a weird name? Xia Xingchen was still puzzled. Spiritual power is not unique to humans. Many alien intelligent races are born with spiritual power, and they are much stronger than humans. In fact, it was only when technology developed to a certain level that humans used instruments to develop their brains and generate spiritual power. Li Xiaomin explained. Humans do not understand spiritual power thoroughly enough and are far less than those alien races who are born with strong spiritual power. Many alien relics require strong spiritual power to use. The magic weapon is one of them. Try it and infuse spiritual power into the bracelet. Okay. Xia Xingchen knew how to use it, and his mood became uncontrollably excited, and he felt that the blood in his body was boiling. Swish. The spiritual power was infused into the bracelet. A wonderful thing happened. Suddenly, a white, gas-like long sword appeared in Xia Xingchen's hand. But the shape of the long sword was not fixed, like a cloud, constantly changing. Sometimes it was a long sword, sometimes a long spear, sometimes a giant axe, and sometimes a broadsword. Various weapons appeared in Xia Xingchen's hands. Xia Xingchen's mental power also quickly poured into the bracelet and soon ran out. Snap. Like a soap bubble bursting, the weapon in Xia Xingchen's hand shattered and turned into countless points of light. What a pity. Your mental power is not enough. Li Xiaomin shook his head. Your mental power level should be between level 33 and 34, a B-level mecha master. However, to use the magic weapon, you need at least level 40 mental power. In other words, only an A-level mecha master can use the magic weapon. This is an insurmountable threshold. Li Xiaomin shook his head, very regretful. Only A-level mecha masters can use it? What is this so-called magic weapon? After using it just now, Xia Xingchen already had a guess in his mind. This device seems to have condensed my mental power into a weapon. That's right. That's the principle. Li Xiaomin nodded. Ah. Kiris's thunder mech is also equipped with magic weapons. So, a lightning sword appeared out of thin air in the hand of the mech. That sword was condensed by Kiris's mental power. Xia Xingchen finally understood. Oh. St. Peter's Kanglang mech can also condense a huge ice two-handed sword. It should also be equipped with a magic weapon. Yes. The Tang Dynasty group has mastered the production method of magic weapons. Moreover, a batch has indeed been sold. However, the quantity is very small. Even for an S-level mecha master, if you want a replica of magic weapon, you not only need a lot of money, but also connections. Li Xiaomin explained. Moreover, what they can buy are all replicas. The power is far less than the original magic weapon in your hand. It can be said that this magic weapon is unique in the entire galaxy. It can no longer be measured by money. If it weren't for you, even the Emperor of the Empire could not have taken the original magic weapon away from the Tang Dynasty Li family. It's a pity I can't use it yet. I'll give it back to you. Xia Xingchen sighed. You keep it. You have a good talent, and with some medicine, I believe that within 3 to 5 years, your mental power will reach level 40. Li Xiaomin said with a smile. 3 to 5 years will pass in a flash. You will be able to use the magic weapon in combat soon. Okay. Then I'll stay. Xia Xingchen did not continue to refuse. Thinking of the power of the magic weapon, he was so excited that his body could not help but tremble. Kirissa drove the thunder mech and cut off the main gun of the starship with one sword. What a terrifying power. What's more, the magic weapon in Kirissa's hand is just a replica, and its power is not as strong as the original. How exaggerated would the power of the original magic weapon be? Thank you very much. Xia Xingchen thanked Li Xiaomin. Don't thank me. You have saved our Li family. Giving you such a small thing is just a token of my appreciation. Although Li Xiaomin said it lightly, he still felt a little painful. It can make Li Xiaomin, a dandy boy ranked in the top 10 of the universe, feel distressed. This unprepossessing black bracelet magic weapon is really invaluable. I have to find a way to raise my mental power level to level 40 as soon as possible. Otherwise, I can't use any good weapons. Xia Xingchen thought secretly in his heart, clenching his fists. If a mecha master wants to improve his strength, the first thing he needs to do is the performance of the mecha. The better the performance of the mecha, the stronger the mecha master's combat ability. However, if you want to drive a better mecha, the mecha master's mental power level must also be raised. Otherwise, many parts that require mental power cannot be used. Xia Xingchen's Xianheng mecha has superior performance. It is mainly because of the mental power coating bonus, plus the joint design of two mecha design masters Zuo Lehun and Hao Xian, that the performance of Xianheng mecha far exceeds that of ordinary mecha. Let Xia Xingchen, a B-level mecha master, fight against several A-level mecha masters, and not fall behind, and even be on par with S-level mecha masters. However, the lead in technology is only temporary. Although mental power coating is very rare, more and more painted mechas will appear over time. At that time, Xia Xingchen's technological advantage will be gone. A good ironsmith must be strong himself. In the final analysis, the foundation of mecha master is still the level of mental power. Only with a higher mental power level can you drive a better mecha and carry more mental power coatings. Xia Xingchen and Li Xiaomin came to the mecha production workshop together. The Xianheng mecha was replaced with a layer of golden god's gold armor, which looked extremely luxurious. What a handsome mecha. Even Li Xiaomin couldn't help but admire it. Haha, how can a mecha designed by two masters, Zuo Lehun and Hao Xian, not be handsome? Xia Xingchen smiled and said, it's just that the color of god's gold is too eye-catching. Not low-key enough. Wait, I have to spray it again. I prefer black. Taheo gold. How handsome. Xingchen, you don't know how to appreciate it. I have decided that my next mecha will also use god's gold to make the external armor. And I won't spray any paint, just use this base color. This can show my identity. Li Xiaomin looked at the handsome Xianheng mecha with a pair of shining eyes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 856 Expedition. What amazed Li Xiaomin was not only the color of the god's gold armor. In the armor workshop, engineers prepared 10 high-power laser generators and fired at the Xianheng armor equipped with the god's gold armor to test the durability of the god's gold against laser beams. Swish. 10 laser generators simultaneously fired purple laser beams at the chest of the Xianheng armor. If it were an ordinary armor, no matter how thick the armor was, it would be instantly melted by the high energy laser beam and penetrated directly. However, the characteristic of god's gold is to reflect the laser beam back. Boom. The 10 laser emitters were instantly destroyed by the laser beams that bounced back, making a deafening explosion. Like everyone who saw god's gold for the first time, Li Xiaomin and the engineers present were shocked by the experimental results. Oh my god. This material is so powerful. Li Xiaomin's eyes widened, and he exclaimed loudly, except for the high cost, there is no disadvantage at all. That's right. Masters Zuo Lehun and Hao Xian both agree that God's gold will change the pattern of the empire. Of course, due to the high cost of God's gold, the change has not yet happened. Xia Xingchen nodded. The Xianheng mecha has been tested and all its performance is normal. Li Xiaomin gave Xia Xingchen a batch of high energy fuel rods and a batch of important mecha parts, and then personally sent Xia Xingchen to the starship to the Sakhalin starfield. This starship, named Expedition, is a large starship with a length of 1,000 meters. In addition to the 10,000 meter long space aircraft carrier, the model of Expedition is already the largest warship in the Empire. There are more than 2,000 crew members on the Expedition, of which 200 are mecha divisions. The captain's name is Zhuo Junshi, a major general. According to the rules of the Imperial military, the minimum title of being able to become the captain of a large starship is a general. In fact, 3 days ago, Zhuo Junshi was only a brigadier general. Although a brigadier general has the title of general, he does not have the power of a general. It is no different from the real power of a colonel. It is extremely difficult to be promoted from a brigadier general to a major general. Not only does he need a deep background, but he also needs real military exploits. This is the so-called rank wall. The same is true for Xia Xingchen. He is now a colonel. If he wants to climb over the rank wall and become a real general, he needs to put in more effort and time, even more than he climbed from a soldier to a colonel. What is different from Zhuo Junshi is that he is lucky. The Galactic Empire lost the battle in the Baku starfield, and many senior officers died. Therefore, the military promoted Zhuo Junshi to Major General and asked him to drive the expedition that had just been produced from the assembly line, full of reserve soldiers who had never been on the battlefield, to the front line. Zhuo Junshi is a middle-aged man in his early 40s, slightly fat, bald, and easygoing. He is more like a businessman than a professional soldier. Zhuo Junshi was from the 3rd Fleet and was promoted by Feng Klausch. He was from the same faction as Xia Xingchen. Zhuo Junshi had a very good attitude towards Xia Xingchen and could even be said to be respectful. Because Zhuo Junshi had obtained solid information about Xia Xingchen from Feng Klausch, he knew that this young man from a poor family was a well-deserved hero of mankind. In the space age, humans worship not stars or athletes, but mecha divisions and combat heroes. Obviously, Xia Xingchen meets these two characteristics. In addition, the imperial media used Xia Xingchen as a typical propaganda. Although ordinary people are extremely forgetful and have forgotten Xia Xingchen, a short-lived hero, the reserve soldiers on the expedition still remember Xia Xingchen. Xia Xingchen soon gained the admiration of all members of the expedition. Although the expedition is a large starship with a wide interior space, it also has a large crew. Excluding the public area, the average personal area is less than 5 square meters. Ordinary crew members do not have their own personal cabins and rest in a collective cabin with 10 people. Even Zhuo Junshi's captain's room was less than 20 square meters, with only a bed and a table inside, and not even enough space for a toilet. However, Zhuo Junshi still gave his captain's room to Xia Xingchen, and he squeezed into the collective cabin with ordinary crew members. Xia Xingchen did not refuse, because he really needed a quiet and independent space to think about something. In the small captain's room, the porthole was a dark subspace. The expedition was making a jump and performing curvature flight in the subspace. Xia Xingchen sat at the table with a slightly frowned brow. In front of him, a complex pattern with beautiful lines and full of mystery was spread out, but the upper left and upper right corners were blank. This was a defective spiritual body paint. The spiritual power paint enhanced was originally a set of 3. However, because of the long time, only 2 paints were completely preserved. The remaining one was defective. After the fierce battle with Lu Bangxing, Xia Xingchen was very satisfied with the performance of the enhanced paint. At the same time, Xia Xingchen also had expectations in his heart. The incomplete painting has such a powerful power. If it is a complete enhanced painting, how powerful will it be? It's a pity that it is incomplete. My ability is not enough to complete this painting. Xia Xingchen shook his head and sighed. He was a little disappointed. He threw the incomplete painting on the table and turned to sit cross-legged on the bed. Humans know almost nothing about mental painting. As a painter, Xia Xingchen can only imitate it. if you want to complete it, let alone Xia Xingchen. No human in the entire galaxy has this ability. It seems that, if I want to improve my strength, relying on painting is temporarily unavailable. Xia Xingchen took the black bracelet divine weapon given to him by Lysiuman in his hand, looked at it carefully, and then slowly poured his mental power into it. Just like last time, the mental power was transformed by the divine weapon, and began to condense into a ball of white mist in Xia Xingchen's palm, and constantly changed into various shapes. Pop. With a light sound, Xia Xingchen's mental power was exhausted, and the white mist dissipated. Xia Xingchen was sweating profusely and breathing heavily. He took a long while to rest and sighed. My mental power is too low. I can't use this weapon yet. And there is the third enhanced paint. Even if I find a way to repair it, I still can't use it if my mental power is less than level 40. It seems improving the level of mental power is the best way to improve strength. Xia Xingchen's heart moved slightly. Chapter 857 Genius and Monster. However, it is not easy to quickly improve the level of mental power. There are about 15 billion human brain cells, but less than 10% of ordinary people are developed and utilized, and most of the others are dormant. Some expert studies have even shown that only 1% of human brain cells are involved in the functional activities of the brain. Mental power is actually a special kind of cosmic energy. Through meditation, humans allow brain cells to absorb cosmic energy and develop the brain area. The higher the process of brain area development, the more developed the brain cells are, and the more cosmic energy is stored. Human superpowers also appear because the brain cells develop to a certain degree, and the quantitative change causes qualitative change. The meditation pictures of ordinary mecha masters are nothing more than starry sky, black hole, cosmic vortex and so on. Even with the help of drugs and instruments, their meditation degree cannot exceed 100. Xia Xingchen's meditation picture is crystal pyramid. The meditation degree is amazing, the meditation efficiency is extremely high, and the speed of mental power improvement is also ridiculously fast. But after Xia Xingchen's meditation degree reached a peak, it has never changed. When Xia Xingchen's mental power level was low, with his meditation degree, the speed of mental power level improvement was naturally amazing. When Xia Xingchen's mental power level exceeded 30, the mental power required to upgrade the level became more and more, and the speed slowed down significantly. According to the current meditation efficiency, Xia Xingchen's mental power needs at least half a year of meditation to increase from level 34 to level 35. It will take 5 years to increase to level 40. Too long. Xia Xingchen frowned. I have to find a way to improve the efficiency of meditation. Medicine. Instrument. Everything that can be tried must be tried. Xia Xingchen made up his mind. Xia Xingchen called Zhuo Junqi over and told him his request. Zhuo Junqi immediately agreed to let Xia Xingchen use the large meditation instrument on the starship and provide him with A-level meditation potions. However, after using the meditation instrument and meditation potion, Xia Xingchen found that his meditation rate still did not change. In fact, it was even less efficient than before. Maybe this is my limit? After meditating for a week, Xia Xingchen had to admit that the meditation instrument and meditation potion were completely useless to him. Interstellar navigation is extremely boring. There is a small bar on the expedition for the crew to relax and have fun. In the bar, Zhuo Junqi was drinking beer and listening to Xia Xingchen's distress, his face full of shock. Well, Colonel, wait a moment. You just said that you need 5 years to raise your mental power level from 34 to 40. Do you think it's too slow? So you're worried? Zhuo Junqi couldn't help but interrupt Xia Xingchen. That's right. Xia Xingchen raised his head and took a sip of beer, frowned and said, it's wartime now. I need more powerful strength. Just as mediocre people like me don't understand the ideas of geniuses, geniuses may not understand our ideas either. Zhuo Junqi sighed. Captain, what do you mean by this? Xia Xingchen asked. What I mean is, to increase the mental strength from 34 to 40 in 5 years. For me, not just me, but for the trillions of humans in the entire galactic empire. It is absolutely impossible. Zhuo Junqi explained. This speed is already astonishingly fast. You actually think it's slow? I really don't know what to say. Fast? Xia Xingchen was a little surprised, but I know an S-class mecha commander. She is only in her teens. Zhuo Junqi's jaw almost dropped in surprise, and after a long while he slowly said, I'm sorry, please let me take back what I said just now. Colonel, you and the people around you are not geniuses, but monsters. I'm 47 years old this year, and I'm already quite young to be a major general. But my mental strength level is only level 27. I may not be able to reach level 30 in this lifetime. How can it be so low? Xia Xingchen was slightly stunned. It's not low, okay? It's just that you are too abnormal. Zhuo Junqi was speechless. Think about it. There are so many people in the Galactic Empire. How many can become mecha masters? How many people work hard all their lives and can't even reach level 10 mental power? Xia Xingchen nodded and said suddenly, that's true. My dream when I was a child was to make my mental power reach level 10 and become a D-class mecha master. But even such a simple dream seemed out of reach at the time. Looking back now, I was quite ridiculous at that time. You are just too strong now, so you forgot your original intention at that time. D-class mecha masters are not something that everyone can become. Moreover, dreams that have been fulfilled are never ridiculous at any time. Zhuo Junqi's expression was very serious. Swish. Xia Xingchen felt like he had been enlightened, and the confusion in his mind was swept away. He recalled that, when he was a teenager, he worked hard for his dream with full of passion. Even if he thought that the dream was out of reach, he worked hard every day with all his heart. He took firm steps forward every day, getting closer and closer to the dream. But what about now? Xia Xingchen is still young, just turned 20. However, his mentality is getting more and more impetuous, and even not as calm as when he was a teenager. People are like this. When you are young, you don't know anything. Your heart is as pure as glass, and you can easily sink into anything you do. On the contrary, you can achieve success. As you grow older, you see more and more, understand more and more, and worry more and more, and your mind becomes messy. Only when you get older, see through the world, and have a stable mentality, can you calm down again. Unfortunately, at this time, you are often not energetic enough, and it is too late. Don't forget your original intention. I understand. My mentality has deteriorated. Mental practice itself is not a matter of one day and one night. I actually want to achieve it in one fell swoop. More haste, less speed. Xia Xingchen stood up and bowed to thank Zhuo Junqi. If it weren't for Zhuo Junqi's enlightenment, Xia Xingchen's mentality would be so impetuous, unable to calm down, and the efficiency of meditation would definitely become worse and worse. Zhuo Junqi looked confused and waved his hands quickly. I was just talking casually. As for what you have realized, it is your own understanding. It has nothing to do with me, and you don't have to thank me. Xia Xingchen returned to the captain's room and sat cross-legged again, entering a meditative state. Sure enough, Xia Xingchen's mind was calm, and he only thought about meditation and practice, not caring about so many mundane things. His meditation efficiency gradually improved, even surpassing the previous peak. Crystal pyramid. The important thing is not the pyramid. It's the crystal. My mind must be as pure as the crystal, without any impurities. Xia Xingchen was deeply touched, and the crystal pyramid in his mind emitted a soft white light. Chapter 858 An Unexpected Surprise. In the starry sky, the large starship expedition passed through a large area of obscure stardust like a shining arrow. It was still 2 months away from the Sakhalin starfield. In the captain's room, Xia Xingchen sat cross-legged on the bed with his eyes closed, meditating. Meow meow meow. The black cat Zioka ran out of Xia Xingchen's spiritual space again at some point, scratching his legs with his little claws, wanting Xia Xingchen to play with him. Xia Xingchen was like a clay sculpture. His spirit seemed to be traveling in the universe and the stars. No matter how Zioka scratched him, he was motionless. Zioka lay on Xia Xingchen's legs and squinted for a while. Seeing that he was still motionless, he was bored and turned around in the captain's room. The space in the captain's room was very small, and there was nothing to play. Zioka felt very bored. kicked his hind legs, jumped onto the table, and saw the incomplete spiritual power painting left by Xia Xingchen on the table. Swish. Zioka's deep blue eyes immediately became bright, and he was deeply attracted by the wonderful pattern of the spiritual power painting. After meditating for 3 hours, Xia Xingchen finally opened his eyes, and a gleam of light immediately shot out of his pupils. Xia Xingchen opened his mouth, and exhaled a stream of white gas. This meditation is very effective. Xia Xingchen smiled and said, next time, my meditation will definitely be better. After adjusting his state, Xia Xingchen regained his confidence. The more confident he is, the better his state will be. Now Xia Xingchen no longer thinks about when he can cultivate his mental power to level 40. He just wants to be down to earth, take one step at a time, and work hard to move forward steadily. Every day is working hard, every day is a fulfilling day, and every day is getting closer to the goal. Try your best, and that's enough. However, at this time, Xia Xingchen saw the black cat Zioka lying on the table, with a pair of fleshy little claws scratching on the incomplete paint. Zioka. Xia Xingchen was shocked and jumped up and yelled, meow. Zioka was startled by the sound and suddenly jumped up half a meter high, and all the hair on his body exploded. Swish. Xia Xingchen had already rushed to the table, and picked up the incomplete spiritual power painting. The painting pattern had been drawn in all directions by Zioka's claws, which was horrible to look at, which made Xia Xingchen feel distressed. It's over. My enhanced painting will never be complete again. Xia Xingchen's heart skipped a beat, and he reached out to catch Zioka who was fleeing, and lifted him up. Meow meow meow. Zioka's limbs kicked wildly, and his teeth and claws were bared. Look at what you have done. Do you know how much damage you have caused me? Xia Xingchen lifted Zioka in front of him, and scolded him angrily. He knew that Zioka could understand what he said. Meow woo. Zioka blew his beard and glared, shouting loudly, obviously very unconvinced. Why, you still don't accept it? Xia Xingchen became even angrier. Meow meow meow. Zioka was still shouting loudly, and his front paws pointed in the direction of the painting, as if to let Xia Xingchen take a closer look. What's so good about it? The originally incomplete paint was messed up by you. But, never mind. It was originally incomplete, so you can ruin it. Xia Xingchen sighed when she saw Zioka's pitiful look. Xia Xingchen bent over and put Zioka on the ground, but it jumped onto the table again and pushed the paint pattern forward with its 2 paws. The meaning was obvious, asking Xia Xingchen to take a closer look. Seeing that Zioka was not giving up, Xia Xingchen had to be patient and look carefully at the messy paint pattern. Time passed by. Xia Xingchen's face became more and more shocked, because Xia Xingchen found that Zioka's cat paws were not just scribbling, but actually completed the incomplete paint pattern. Zioka, how did you do it? Xia Xingchen was ecstatic, feeling hot all over, and his blood was boiling. Zioka was not destroying, but doing good things. Zioka meowed twice, tilting his head up, looking like he was asking for credit. Then, he jumped to the keyboard next to him, and typed a few words, calculation, and deduction. Xia Xingchen was shocked. It turned out that Zioka completed the paint pattern not because he knew the original appearance of the pattern. Instead, he relied on high-frequency calculation and deduction. Zioka not only had Carlos' database, but also had 1% of his computing power. This computing power has already surpassed the most advanced large computers in human beings. By the way, the large computer thinker on Lingjiu Star has also been performing calculations and deductions to complete the incomplete paint. Xia Xingchen slapped his thigh suddenly. There are celestial ruins on Lingjiu Star. Xia Xingchen is not qualified to enter the celestial ruins on Lingjiu Star, but from the pictures, there are many paint patterns in the celestial ruins. Most of these patterns are incomplete, but the degree of incompleteness is more or less. The thinker computer relies on high-frequency massive calculations to calculate and deduce these incomplete parts. However, some of the paintwork was so damaged that the thinker had no way to deal with it. But Zioka could. Zioka's computing ability was even better than the thinker's. Not to mention, Zioka had Carlos's database. Zioka. Thank you so much. Xia Xingchen picked up Xia with both hands and kissed him on his chubby face, regardless of the cat's fur pricking his mouth. Meow. Xia looked disgusted and struggled desperately to break free from Xia Xingchen's hands. Xia looked up at the door and then at Xia Xingchen. The meaning was obvious. As a reward, Xia Xingchen was asked to open the door and let him out. Okay. It seems that you are bored too. Xia Xingchen first notified the captain that his pet cat wanted to take a look around the expedition and only opened the door after getting permission. Xia's black tail was raised high and he walked out of the small captain's room with light and elegant steps, wandering around the large starship that was 1,000 meters long. It was expressly prohibited on the starship that no one could bring animals on board, because there may be some deadly germs on animals, which can spread in a small space and cause plague. Such a tragedy happened in the era of the Great Universe thousands of years ago. Hundreds of people on a cargo ship died in the sleeping box because of the plague bacteria on a mouse. This is a bloody lesson. However, with the advancement of technology today, the sterilization system on the spacecraft is enough to kill any germs. Therefore, this rule is more symbolic than practical. In addition, Xia is Xia Xingchen's pet, and he is so cute that he soon became the favorite of almost all the crew members. Xia Xingchen locked himself in the captain's room and took out the fill liquid metal purchased on the coffin star from the mental space to prepare the last enhanced paint. When making the paint, the mind is highly concentrated and the mental power is mobilized to move atoms. This is also a good way to exercise brain cells, which is of great benefit to Xia Xingchen's mental power practice. Chapter 859 The True Face of the Envoy. Siberia. In front of the magnificent winter palace, there was a wide square of tens of thousands of meters. At this moment, the square was occupied by a huge strange church. The sharp roof of the church pierced the sky, even higher than Nicholas's palace. Thousands of male and female believers in white robes were crawling on the small square in front of the church, praying in a low voice for blessings from the gods. Several strange believers covered in black robes, holding a strange spherical instrument in their hands, walked slowly among the crawling believers. Beep, beep. The instrument in the hand of a black-robed believer suddenly rang. A white-robed woman next to him suddenly raised her head, with a twisted ecstatic smile on her face, and shouted, it's me, I have heard the call of the true God. The black-robed believer did not speak, but motioned the woman to lower her head. The woman did as she was told. The black-robed believer placed the spherical instrument in his hand on the back of the woman's head. Swish. The instrument suddenly pierced a sharp needle tube and pierced into the woman's brain from the back. Suddenly, the woman's 7 orifices bled, her whole body began to spasm violently, and she was dead in the blink of an eye. The black-robed believer shook his head, leaving the woman's body where it was, holding the blood-stained spherical instrument in his hand, and slowly walked towards. The white-robed believers crawling on the ground turned a blind eye to the woman's death. Low prayers echoed in the sky above Siberia. Inside the church, a black-robed messenger knelt in front of a statue. The statue was not humanoid, nor was it a beast, but a ball of light. A ball of pure white light. The door of the church opened, and a dozen black-robed believers dragged 5 white-robed men and women in. These white-robed men and women had strange balls pierced into the back of their heads. But they did not die, and they had dull smiles on their faces. Only 5. The messenger turned his head and asked, it's getting worse and worse. There are fewer and fewer suitable voters. A black-robed believer replied, this time, 3,000 people were baptized, and 280 responded, but only 5 survived. More than 200 died? The envoy shook his head, and said in a cold voice, it seems that the number of voters in the north is still too small. To complete the mission of the true God, we need a larger population base. Lord Envoy, the north has been hollowed out. The churches of several large planets have said that there are really no more voters. The black-robed believer said, simple. If there are not enough people in the north, we will go to the Galactic Empire to preach. The envoy said lightly. But, judging from the situation, the north cannot win in a short time. The black-robed believer whispered, haha. That's because the miracle has not happened yet. To overthrow the Galactic Empire with the power of the true God is too simple. The envoy did not continue to speak, but waved his hand and asked the black-robed believers to drag the 5 living voters over, take off their clothes, and place them in front of the statue. Then, the envoy took out 5 syringes. The syringes contained a light yellow liquid with bubbles. He carefully inserted the needle into the wound on the back of the white-robed cultist's head and pushed all the strange liquid inside. True God, please guide these lost lambs. The messenger knelt in front of the statue and prayed loudly. A few seconds later, the 5 voters began to scream loudly. Dense green scales began to grow rapidly on the surface of their skin. A tail emerged from the coccyx. The head stretched and became flat. The mouth split backwards into a huge mouth. The tongue split in the middle into 2, and the eyes also moved rapidly, turning into snake-like vertical pupils. They were turning from humans into snakes. True God, please guide them. Seeing this scene, the messenger took off the black hood on his head, revealing an inhuman green snake face. True God, I beg you. The other black-robed cultists also took off their hoods. Their faces were all snakes, constantly spitting out red snake tongues. If Xia Xingchen was present, he would definitely recognize that these so-called God's messengers all came from a mysterious organization, the Chosen Ones. However, the Chosen Ones suddenly transformed from a mysterious underground organization into a sect that worships the gods. And they firmly controlled the Northern Empire in their hands. One of the female elects transformed the fastest. She struggled desperately and squirmed, like a snake shedding its skin, taking off her human skin. However, when she was halfway through shedding her skin, she suddenly lost her strength and began to hold her head with both hands, making heart-wrenching screams. Puff! Her body suddenly exploded like a water ball, turning into a pool of yellow, smelly liquid. Puff! 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 The other 4 people were the same, all turned into liquid and died, and their screams before death were extremely painful. A bunch of trash. All of them couldn't stand the gift of God, and their genes collapsed and died. The God's messenger's scaly snake face showed a trace of disdain, and a cold light flashed in his golden vertical pupils. The other black-robed believers lowered their heads, saying nothing, and didn't dare to speak. Forget it. The potential of the North has been tapped. It's time to take action against the Galactic Empire. The envoy smiled coldly, turned around and shouted, Medusa, messenger of God. A graceful woman walked out, twisting her waist. Her face still looked like a human, but her hair was made of hundreds of green snakes, which was somewhat similar to the witch Medusa in Greek mythology. Athena has some problems. The mission that was supposed to be performed by her fell on our heads. Medusa, take 5 elite believers, drive the mecha, and go to planet R14. There is what the true God wants there. The envoy of God said. As you command. Medusa knelt down with a smile on her face. But, divine envoy, what kind of mecha should I drive? I have no interest in the shabby mecha of the Northern Empire. Don't worry. This is the new mecha of our chosen ones. It is much more advanced than the mecha designed by Asimov, the idiot. You will know when you see it. The divine envoy said lightly. This mission is very important. If I didn't have more important things to do, I would go to planet R14 to carry out the mission in person. Unfortunately. So, Medusa, this mission can only succeed, not fail. Please rest assured, divine envoy. With me and 5 elite believers, even a legendary mecha master is no match. Medusa smiled contemptuously. Her green snake hair swayed. You are my most capable subordinate. I believe in you. The divine envoy waved his hand and asked Medusa to withdraw. After arranging the affairs of the church, the divine envoy left Siberia Star in a spaceship, passed through a secret wormhole, and came to Lingshu Star in the southern Great Cross Star region. A person had been waiting on Lingshu Star for a long time. This man had blonde hair and freckles on his face. It was Caesar, the young conspirator. Cyrus Caesar. Chapter 860 Caesar's ambition. Are you a messenger of God? Caesar's young face was filled with anxiety. When he saw the man in black robe, he was slightly stunned, but he still walked up to ask. At this moment, Caesar was extremely anxious. The conspiracy of the Cyrus family had long been discovered by the emperor. If it weren't for the protection of the regent Qin Yan, the Cyrus family would have been uprooted, and the whole family would have been executed. It turned out that Caesar's plan was to hold on to Qin Yan's thigh tightly. However, Qin Yun suffered heavy losses in the Battle of Brest Starfield, and his reputation in the country plummeted, and even his military power was removed. Now, Qin Yun himself can't protect himself, so Caesar has to find a new umbrella to keep his family alive. However, it is not easy to find a new umbrella. Just when Caesar was at a loss, the chosen organization that had contacted him before found him again. And the chosen organization has a new identity, sweeping across the large church in the north, Shinran sect. The man who traveled thousands of miles to Lingshu Star to meet Caesar was none other than the mysterious man who was in charge of the Shinran religion, and had the ability to change the political situation in the north, the envoy of God. Caesar had always been skeptical about the chosen organization, and did not fully believe it. However, the Cyrus family could be exterminated at any time, so Caesar could only try his best. That's right, I'm the envoy of God. The black-robed man's voice was soft, with a natural affinity. Great. Lord Envoy of God, please save me and my family. Caesar was very smart, and knelt down immediately. I'm willing to convert to the Shinran religion, and my family will also support the Shinran religion. Very good. The envoy of God smiled faintly, his whole body filled with strong self-confidence. Caesar, you are a smart guy. We in the Shinran religion like to deal with smart people, which saves more effort. I can not only save you and your family, but also fulfill the ambitions of you and your father. My father's ambitions? Caesar was suddenly stunned. The Cyrus family has always had an ambition to replace Prime Minister Anke and become the new Prime Minister of the Empire. However, the Cyrus family is not well established. Caesar's father, Old Cyrus, is a mediocre person who is no match for the old fox Anke. This ambition has always been buried in the hearts of Caesar and Old Cyrus, and has never been told to outsiders. How did the envoy of God know this secret? For a moment, Caesar's back was soaked with cold sweat, and the biting cold spread from his spine, as if thousands of cold worms were crawling slowly. Caesar, you don't need to guess my thoughts. I represent the will of God. You mortals can't understand God's thoughts. You just need to obey. The golden vertical pupils of the envoy of God flashed with a chilling light. Caesar shuddered violently, lowered his head, and said respectfully, yes. Can I do something for God? Take me to see the regent Qin Yun. As a middleman, you will get everything I promised. The envoy of God said. So simple. Caesar was stunned. As smart as he was, he couldn't figure out what the inevitable connection was between letting the envoy see Qin Yun and the ambitions of the Cyrus family. After all, Qin Yun had lost power now. At this moment, Qin Yun was under house arrest in a starship flying to Xia Star. When he arrived at Xia Star, what awaited him was also a trial by a military court and a long period of imprisonment. Yes, it's that simple. The envoy smiled faintly. Lord Envoy. Caesar nodded and agreed. He kept licking his lips and suddenly said, you should have the ability to see through people's hearts. All my thoughts are exposed to you without reservation. You can know how loyal I'm to you. Of course. The envoy was a little surprised. This young conspirator Caesar really had wisdom beyond ordinary people. He had already guessed his ability with just a few short sentences. However, the envoy himself did not need to hide anything from Caesar. Then you should know that my ambition is not just to be the Prime Minister of the Empire. A beautiful and graceful figure emerged in Caesar's mind. Just thinking about it made his blood boil, and he kept swallowing his saliva. Old Cyrus wanted to be the Prime Minister, and he was crazy about it. However, the young Caesar had always coveted the beauty of Princess Xingchen and wanted to possess her. Because of Xia Xingchen, Caesar once gave up this idea, but the promise of the envoy of God made the fire in Caesar's heart burn again. Caesar, you are ambitious. The envoy of God smiled. You even want to get involved with the noble princess crossing. Not getting involved, but possessing. I want to ravage her. Trample her under my feet. See if she will be as noble and arrogant as before. Caesar's eyes flashed with unspeakable viciousness. Caesar, I can't agree to your request. The envoy of God shook his head. Why? Isn't God omnipotent? Caesar was stunned. God is of course omnipotent. However, you should know that the Imperial Council of Elders has granted the marriage to Princess Crossing and Xia Xingchen. This matter is known to the whole empire. Even so, do you still want to possess Princess Crossing? the envoy of God said lightly. This. Caesar hesitated. Like most men, he had a serious virgin complex. What he cared about was not love, but possession, complete possession. Since Princess Crossing was already Xia Xingchen's fiancée, this matter was set in stone, which meant that she was already unclean. All this was caused by Xia Xingchen. Caesar hated Xia Xingchen in his heart and gnashed his teeth, but he could do nothing about it. Caesar, although Princess Crossing is not okay, can her sister Princess Yu? The envoy of God said. Princess Yu. Caesar's eyes suddenly lit up, and he nodded quickly. Yes, of course. But Princess Yu has the holy temple. In front of God, all power is nothingness, and any force is vulnerable, including the Galactic Empire. The envoy of God laughed again. Princess Yu, Princess Yu. Caesar rubbed his hands excitedly. He didn't care which of the sisters he possessed. He just wanted the noble imperial princess to wear a noble and elegant princess dress and crawl in front of him like a bitch. After getting the promise from the envoy of God, Caesar was ecstatic. According to the envoy's instructions, he transferred all the private soldiers of the Cirrus family to Lingshu Star. Lingshu Star is an important transportation hub, but it is located in a remote area in the Ghost Starfield. With the power of the Cirrus family, it is easy to control Lingshu Star. Chapter 861, Eve of the Storm. A few days later, the starship Xingchen where Qin Yun was imprisoned passed through the wormhole and arrived at the Lingshu Star base to replenish fuel and supplies. Caesar personally led his private soldiers and occupied the Xingchen at a lightning speed. Caesar, you are treason. The captain of the Xingchen, Major General Lei Zhe, was handcuffed to the ground and loudly denounced Caesar's crimes. Yes, it's treason. Caesar had already made a desperate move, and with a grin, he took out a pistol from his arms and prepared to kill Major General Lei Zhe. Wait a minute, Caesar, he is still useful. The black-robed envoy pushed Caesar's gun away, walked in front of Major General Lei Zhe, and looked at him with a pair of golden vertical pupils. Who are you? Lei Zhe felt dizzy, his eyes went black, and he fainted. Okay, Caesar. Let's go see Qin Yun. The envoy said. Qin Yun was locked in a room of 40 square meters. The entire room was wrapped in a thick layer of alloy plates, and the inside was wrapped in a layer of soft sponge composite materials. This was done to prevent Qin Yun from self-harm. Qin Yun's hair was a mess like a bird's nest. His beard was unshaven for who knows how many days he hadn't shaved. His face was haggard, and there were countless bottles of wine around him. During this period, Qin Yun had been drinking to drown his sorrows and indulging in the anesthesia of alcohol. In decades of exile, Qin Yun had never fallen so much. Exiled to the wild starfield, Qin Yun at least had freedom. But what awaited him in the future was only countless years of imprisonment. Emperor Qinzizi was great but incompetent, and his character was weak. But that didn't mean he was a kind-hearted person. Qin Yun's heart had completely sunk, and despair filled the entire room. At this moment, the door of the room opened, and a man in a black robe walked in and asked, Qin Yun, do you want to be the emperor of the empire? Qin Yun was stunned by this question. With his current self, like a drowned dog, could he become the emperor of the empire? Was the black-robed man in front of him crazy, or was he crazy and seeing hallucinations? Qin Yun, I'm the messenger of the true God. The true God is omnipotent. As long as you are willing, I can help you become the emperor of the empire. The voice of the messenger was full of temptation. Of course I'm willing. Qin Yun hesitated for a while, and finally couldn't resist the temptation and nodded slowly. The chess pieces are all ready. The messenger smiled faintly, and a trace of consciousness that did not belong to humans quickly flashed through the depths of his golden vertical pupils. 12 hours later, the Xingchen starship took off from Lingshu Star, preparing to pass through the wormhole and return to the Xia Star region. In the captain's room, Major General Lei Zhe looked forward with expressionless eyes. Behind Lei Zhe, there stood two figures who did not belong to the Xingchen. One was the black-robed messenger, and the other was the blonde young man Caesar. Lise, how long will it take us to reach Xia Star? The messenger asked. It will take at least 40 days, my respected master. Lei Zhe was extremely respectful to the messenger. A trace of astonishment flashed across Caesar's face. He only now realized that the ability of the messenger is not only to see through people's hearts, but also to control people's hearts. This ability is really too powerful. 40 days later, when the Xingchen reach a Shinean star, a storm that will shake the galaxy will sweep over. The Galactic Empire, which has experienced thousands of years, is on the verge of collapse. Sakhalin Star region. The expedition starship passed through the atmosphere of Minsk and landed slowly. Minsk is an important planet in the southwest of Sakhalin Star region. The headquarters of the Galactic Empire Army is located on Minsk. Inside the expedition, the third piece of mental power paint enhancement is finally completed. Xia Xingchen looked at the mental power paint in front of him, sighed, and a happy expression appeared on his face. The pattern of the third paint is extremely complex. In the second half of the journey, Xia Xingchen locked himself in the room and kept making this last paint. The enhanced paint has been completed and can be mounted on the Xianheng mecha at any time. However, Xia Xingchen's mental power level is less than level 40 and he cannot use the complete enhanced paint for the time being. The divine weapon system also requires mental power to reach level 40 before it can be used. Level 40 mental power is a watershed. When I reach level 40, my combat power will soar. Unfortunately, my current mental power is less than level 35. Xia Xingchen smiled helplessly. Now, Xia Xingchen's mentality has calmed down. He is not anxious, but helpless. He knows very well that this is also helpless. All mecha masters in the galaxy need time and a lot of hard work to improve their mental power level. Only a very small number of people can quickly increase their mental power because of special encounters. Xia Xingchen has not encountered such a good thing so far. Although he has the help of the crystal pyramid, Xia Xingchen's mental power is accumulated bit by bit through meditation. Colonel Xia Xingchen, Marshal Feng Bismarck wants to see you. The starship broadcast reminded. Yes. Xia Xingchen immediately left the expedition. Hello, Colonel Xia Xingchen. The marshal asked me to pick you up. Next to the apron, a major stood next to the hovercraft and saluted Xia Xingchen. I'm flattered that the colonel came to pick me up. Xia Xingchen smiled. He was only a few ranks higher than the major in front of him. In terms of real power, he was not even as good as the major. Colonel, I took the initiative to ask to pick you up. I've heard rumors about you, and I have to meet you anyway. The major was more than 10 years older than Xia Xingchen, but his eyes were full of admiration when he looked at Xia Xingchen. Okay. Xia Xingchen shrugged his shoulders and got on the hovercraft. The hovercraft sped and soon arrived at the central area of Minsk. Colonel, please follow me. At the door of a building, a female adjutant had been waiting here for a long time. Led by the female adjutant, Xia Xingchen came to the top floor of the building. This was originally a commercial building, but now it has been temporarily requisitioned and has become the headquarters of the Galactic Empire Army. The chairman's room on the top floor. A tall old man was standing in front of the huge French window, not looking down at the earth, but looking up at the sky. Marshal. Xia Xingchen walked in and saluted. The old man turned around, and it was none other than the old marshal of the Galactic Empire, Feng Bismarck. This iron-blooded marshal, after seeing Xia Xingchen, showed kindness in his eyes and said with a smile, Xingchen, you are here. Please sit down. This expression and tone of voice did not sound like a superior talking to a subordinate, but rather like an elder talking to a younger one. The only person in the entire galaxy who could make Feng Bismarck speak with such an attitude might be Xia Xingchen. You know, Feng Bismarck was also extremely strict with his son, Feng Claude. Chapter 862 Heading to the Ruins. Feng Bismarck was so kind to Xia Xingchen. First, he admired Xia Xingchen very much. He thought Xia Xingchen had a promising future. Second, the marriage between Xia Xingchen and Princess Xingchen had spread throughout the galaxy. Feng Bismarck watched Xingchen grow up little by little. Xia Xingchen was naturally his junior. Marshal, you have lost weight. Seeing that the marshal's hair had all turned grey, his eyes were full of bloodshot, his face was pale and haggard, and his body was also much thinner. Xia Xingchen felt distressed and whispered, haha, it's better to be thinner. It's worth a lot of money to be thin in old age. Feng Bismarck smiled freely and said, I don't have much time. There will be an important military meeting later. Let's make it short. You are going to planet R14 now? Can you tell me the reason? If it was someone else, Xia Xingchen might not tell the truth and just find a reason to get away with it. But for Marshal Feng Bismake, Xia Xingchen trusted him 100%. On Xianyuan Star, Marshal Feng Bisma once took a great risk to remind Xia Xingchen to leave quickly to avoid being assassinated by Qin Yun. In Xia Xingchen's eyes, Marshal Feng Bisma was not only a superior, but also a trustworthy elder. After all, Xia Xingchen was just 20 years old and still very young. He had a lot of confusion in his heart and needed an elder to guide him. Xia Xingchen told Marshal Feng Bisma all the information about the planet R14. After listening, Feng Bisma's grey eyebrows were tightly frowned, and his face was thoughtful. After a long while, he slowly asked, Xingchen, you mean that the ancient celestial relics on this planet are very important? Even the celestials value them very much, so you have to go and find out immediately. That's right. Xia Xingchen nodded. The ancient celestial relics are extremely dangerous. I don't recommend you go alone. Feng Bisma shook his head. But now the war situation is tense, and the Imperial Army is short of manpower. The one who picked me up just now was even a major. Although he said that he took the initiative to pick me up because he admired me, I know that it was because there was really no more manpower. Xia Xingchen said, under the current situation, it is impossible to send another fleet to the planet R14. Xingchen, your observation is really sharp. Feng Bismarck sighed. You are right about the shortage of manpower now. I really can't send a fleet. I can't even send a large starship to help you. I just looked at the star map. The planet R14 is not far from the front line. Sending a fleet is likely to attract the attention of the Northern Army. So, please ask the Marshal to give me a small spaceship. I will explore the planet R14 alone. This is the best way. Xia Xingchen said. No, it's too dangerous for you to go alone. Feng Bismarck still shook his head. What should I do? Xia Xingchen asked. Giles, come in. Feng Bismarck pressed a button on the table. The voice spread out. The door opened quickly. A tall man in a captain's uniform walked in. He has short brown hair, is 2 meters tall, has broad shoulders and a big waist, and is as strong as a bear. The man carries a heavy sense of oppression, and his eyes are as sharp as lightning. A-class mecha master. Xia Xingchen felt like needles pricking her body, which was mental pressure. The man in front of her was not only an A-class mecha master, but also had a mental power close to level 50. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Xia Xingchen to have such a feeling. His name is Giles, a quasi S-class mecha master. My personal bodyguard. Feng Bisma said. In addition to him, there are 2 A-class mecha masters and 3 B-class mecha masters. There are 6 people in total. They protect me closely and ensure my safety from being assassinated by spies from the north. Although I can't send out troops. However, I can send these 6 people to go to planet R14 with you to protect your safety along the way. Giles is a quasi S-class mecha master with strong combat effectiveness. Even if he encounters an S-class mecha master, he has the strength to fight. Feng Bisma explained. Marshal, you sent your bodyguard to protect me. What will you do? Xia Xingchen said anxiously. Haha, Xingchen. You will soon marry Princess Crossing, but you are a member of the Imperial family. Your safety is more important than mine. If something happens to me in my defense zone, I won't be able to explain to Princess Crossing. Feng Bismake laughed. But, Xia Xingchen felt warm in his heart, knowing that Feng Bismake cared about him, but he was still worried and wanted to argue. Colonel, obey orders. Feng Bismake's face suddenly sank. Yes. Xia Xingchen had no choice but to obey the order. Okay. Giles, go and notify others to go to planet R14 with Xia Xingchen. Remember, you must obey his orders. Feng Bismake turned to Giles and said. Yes. Giles obeyed the order and turned to leave. Xingchen, if you need any weapons or spaceships, tell me as soon as possible. I will ask someone to arrange it. Feng Bismake said. Yes, Marshal. Xia Xingchen left immediately. Whoosh. 2 fly-class spaceships passed through the atmosphere of Minsk and flew towards outer space. The fly-class spaceship is the smallest model of the Galactic Empire Army. There are no weapons on board, and it is usually used for reconnaissance missions. The The spaceship is very small, with a standard configuration of 5 people, and only 5 mechas can be placed in the cargo hold. A small spaceship like the Evil Mind also has only 5 mecha bays. However, the mecha bays on the Evil Mind include auxiliary facilities such as support frames, ejection devices, and maintenance devices. If a battle occurs, the mechas in the mecha bays can be used at any time. The fly-class spaceship only has a cargo hold, without even a mecha bay. In the event of a battle, it can only passively take the beating, find a safe area, and load the mecha from the cargo hold, and then fight. In most cases, when a fly-class spaceship encounters a battle, it has no time to unload the mechas, and has been blown up. Of course, no one would be stupid enough to fill the cargo hold of a fly-class spaceship with mechas. These are all Xia Xingchen's orders. Originally, Feng Bismarck agreed to send a small starship, but Xia Xingchen strongly opposed it, saying that the starship was too big, and it would be easier to hide using a fly-class spaceship. Feng Bismarck couldn't get away with it, so he agreed to Xia Xingchen's opinion. In a fly-class spaceship, Giles and 5 mecha masters squeezed into a small space, and couldn't help complaining. "Boss, tell me what's going on. We are obviously the bodyguards of the Grand Marshal, but we were sent out to protect a kid who is still wet behind the ears. Now we are squeezed like sardines in this small spaceship, and we have to fly to the front line. Isn't this sending us to die?" A bald black man looked dissatisfied. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 863 Provocation. Moshe is right. This guy named Xia Xingchen is said to be the man of Princess Crossing. He climbed to the position of colonel by relying on nepotism. He has no real ability. We can't listen to him, or we will die. A white man echoed. "Yes, boss. He is nothing. A young man who knows nothing. We can't listen to him. Let's negotiate with him. This can't go on." Several B-class mecha masters were also arguing loudly. "Shut up," Giles shouted loudly. "Noisy. It's making my head hurt." The cabin immediately fell silent. "Everyone is right. We can't die with this stupid noble dude. I'll negotiate with him. I have to decide the itinerary this time." Giles' mouth corners curled up slightly. In fact, he had long disliked Xia Xingchen. "Boss, if he doesn't agree, we'll beat him up. Let him know whose fist is harder." The black man Moshe laughed. "The man who beat up Princess Crossing? Moshe, you don't want to live anymore, do you?" A white man joked. Beep, beep. Just when Giles was about to send a signal to Xia Xingchen to stop the spacecraft, Xia Xingchen took the initiative to send a video link. Giles was a little surprised and came to the screen where Xia Xingchen's face appeared. "Colonel, what do you want?" Giles asked. "Giles, thank you and your friends for your protection. It's still 4 hours away from planet R14. Your mission is completed and you can go back," Xia Xingchen said lightly. "Ah." Giles was stunned. The mission hasn't even started yet, but it's over like this? "But, the Marshal has ordered that we must protect your safety throughout the journey." Giles was stunned. "The Marshal also said that you must obey my orders. Now, you return immediately. I don't need your protection." Xia Xingchen had a stern face and a cold expression. "What do you mean you don't need our protection?" Giles stared and asked loudly. "You must follow me, right?" Xia Xingchen sighed. "Yes, this is the Marshal's order. We must protect your safety," Giles said loudly. "Then I will tell the truth." Xia Xingchen's expression became cold again. "You are not qualified to protect me. Planet R14 is too dangerous. If you follow me, it means you will die. I don't have the extra energy to take care of you." Giles laughed. "Colonel, this is the funniest joke I have ever heard in my life. We are professional bodyguards, and our job is to protect others. We actually need you to take care of us. Can I regard your words as a provocation? Whatever you want. Anyway, you should return home immediately, and don't drag me down," Xia Xingchen said coldly. "Colonel, you look down on us. We actually look down on you too. Why don't we have a bet? Pick one of the 6 of us." As long as you can win, it means that we are not strong enough and are not qualified to protect you. Naturally, return home. If you lose, just shut up and follow my arrangements. Giles's forehead was throbbing with blue veins. The boss is right. Come on, let's have a fight. You can pick anyone you want. Come on. Don't think you are arrogant just because you are Princess Crossing's man. Everyone says you are a hero of the Empire. I didn't expect you to be as arrogant as Qin Yun. Challenge us. Any one of us can crush your mecha with just one finger. The other 5 mecha masters, hearing Xia Xingchen's provocation, were also unconvinced and shouted loudly. In that case, Giles, I choose you. Xia Xingchen said lightly. Giles' body stiffened, and an incredible smile appeared on his face. Colonel, you should know that I'm a quasi S-class mecha master, and you are just a small B-class mecha master. I advise you to find a B-class mecha master as your opponent. Maybe you still have a chance of winning. No need. Xia Xingchen said lightly. You are their leader. I can only defeat you. Only then will you be convinced and return home obediently. Arrogant. It's really too arrogant. Boss, teach this arrogant kid a lesson. A B-class mecha master challenges a quasi S-class mecha master. Haha, it's really a fantasy. The mecha masters quarreled again, feeling extremely angry at Xia Xingchen's contempt. Okay, I accept your challenge. Giles knew that with a noble playboy like Xia Xingchen, there was no need to talk nonsense at all. He just needed to crush him with his strength and let him know how high the sky is and how thick the earth is. Seeing Giles agreed, Xia Xingchen's mouth showed a bitter smile that no one noticed. In fact, Xia Xingchen did not want to deliberately provoke Giles. When Xia Xingchen saw that Giles' mecha was just an ordinary space knight, he knew that he was definitely not a match for his Xianheng mecha. Xia Xingchen did this for his own reasons. In any case, this battle was inevitable. Xia Xingchen also wanted to take this opportunity to try out how powerful the Xianheng mecha equipped with the God's Gold outer armor was. 2 fly-class spaceships stopped directly in space. Giles and his men spent 10 minutes to get the Space Knight out of the cargo hold. Xia Xingchen had been driving the Xianheng mecha and waiting in the starry sky for a long time. The outer shell of the Xianheng mecha was coated with a layer of black light-absorbing paint, which could hide the body to the greatest extent. On the dark background of the starry sky, only a vague outline could be seen. Colonel, sorry. Giles, on the Space Knight, did not hesitate at all. He stepped on the power pedal and immediately launched an attack. He couldn't wait to teach Xia Xingchen a lesson. Whoosh! The thrusters behind the Space Knight sprayed light, and it rushed towards the Xianheng mech like lightning. It's indeed a quasi S-class mech master. What a fast speed. Xia Xingchen knew the performance of the Space Knight mech very well. Giles could actually use the performance of the Space Knight to the limit, which shows how strong he is. It's a pity, it's just a Space Knight. Xia Xingchen shook his head. Boom. The purple light thrusters behind the Xianheng mech opened, barehanded, with a pale yellow light flashing on his fist, rushing forward like a phantom. Come on. Xia Xingchen's eyes turned cold. Look down on me. You want a mech wrestling? I haven't been afraid of anyone yet. Giles' eyes were stern, without any fear. Boom. The Space Knight and the Xianheng mech collided heavily. The 2 mechas grabbed each other's hands and their heads were against each other, just like bulls wrestling. This kind of duel can best reflect the performance of the mech and the level of the mech master. Strong is strong, weak is weak, there is no luck, no chance. Chapter 864 Hardships. In the case of similar performance of Mechas, a B-class mecha master could not possibly be the opponent of a quasi S-class mecha master. But, the performance of the Space Knight and the Xianheng mecha is too different. Break it. Xia Xingchen shouted. Giles only felt a huge force coming over, pressing him so hard that he couldn't breathe. The Xianheng mecha in front of him seemed to have turned into an extremely large meteorite, which was completely unstoppable. Crack, crack, crack. A series of teeth-grinding metal screams, and the Space Knight's hands were crushed alive. Swish. The Space Knight's arms were torn off completely, leaving only a bare torso. The Xianheng mecha was unscathed. Xia Xingchen won. In the cockpit, Giles was completely stunned. He couldn't react to the defeat. Hiss. A large number of people gasped in the spaceship. These mecha masters were cheering for Giles, but the next moment, he lost inexplicably. Everyone's faces were filled with shock, and their eyes were cast on the Xia Xingchen mecha with surprise. You lost. Abide by the agreement and return home immediately. Xia Xingchen did not give Giles any time to react. The Xia Xingchen mecha flashed and returned to the spaceship. The engine was turned on and continued to move towards the planet R14. In the starry sky, the damaged Space Knight and the remaining spaceship stopped in place. 10 minutes later, Giles finally reacted from the shock and drove the Space Knight, who had lost both arms, back to the spaceship. Boss, how did you lose? We don't understand. Moshe came forward and said to Giles, who looked pale. I don't know either. Giles shook his head, his face full of fear. I have never seen such a strong mecha. It's not that Xia Xingchen is strong, but his mecha is too strong. I'm not his opponent. Everyone was silent. They are all mecha masters, and they all understand one thing. A strong mecha means a strong mecha master. Even if a legendary mecha master is driving an engineering mecha with only excavation function, he cannot be the opponent of a D-class mecha master driving a military mecha. This is equivalent to one person's weapon being a long sword and another's weapon being a heavy machine gun. The two are not comparable. Of course, the higher the level of the mecha master, the older he is, the more money he has accumulated, and the better the mecha he can customize. Giles also has his own customized mecha. However, in a previous battle, Giles' mecha was damaged in order to protect Marshal Feng Bismarck, and it is still under repair. Therefore, he could only find a standard mecha Space Knight at random. Giles originally thought that with his own strength and the performance of the Space Knight, he could crush Xia Xingchen. Now Giles realized that he was wrong, and he was wrong outrageously. With just one move, he was defeated by Xia Xingchen, and suffered a miserable defeat. Boss, what should we do now? Are we really going back? Moshe asked. Return. If we return like this, the Marshal will be furious. Giles smiled bitterly. I will contact the Marshal and tell him the situation here. After all, it was Xia Xingchen who was stubborn and deliberately provoked. It's not entirely our fault. That's right. We have a video recording. Send it directly to the Marshal. Prove our innocence. Others also agreed. Giles immediately contacted Marshal Feng Bismarck using the superwave communicator on the spacecraft and sent the video conversation between himself and Xia Xingchen, as well as the battle video. Giles originally thought that, after watching the video, the Marshal would be furious and scold Xia Xingchen. Unexpectedly, Feng Bismarck's eyes were wet when he watched half of the video. Marshal, why are you? Giles had never seen the Marshal lose his temper so much, and he almost couldn't control his emotions. The most important thing is that Feng Bismarck was watching Xia Xingchen's provocative video. Why does he look so moved? Giles looked confused. Giles, do you know Xia Xingchen? After watching the video, Feng Bismarck turned his body away for a long time. The tears in his eyes had been wiped away, and his iron-blooded face was restored. Marshal, I don't know. I think he is a dandy. Giles said truthfully. I know him. He is a humble and easygoing person. There is always a bright smile on his face like the sun. Even if it is covered by haze for a while, it will soon dissipate. He is a trustworthy person. He will never be domineering and arrogant. Feng Bismarck said slowly, with a kind look in his eyes. But, he obviously. Giles was even more confused. The Xia Xingchen in Feng Bismarck's mouth was completely different from what he saw. This is the gentleness of Xia Xingchen. Why did he let you return? Feng Bismarck's voice couldn't help trembling. He did it for me. He was worried about my safety. That's why he deliberately provoked you to fight and wanted you to come back immediately to protect me. Ah. So that's it. Giles suddenly realized. He now understood why Xia Xingchen wanted 2 fly-class spaceships instead of a small starship. Xia Xingchen had already thought about it and asked the 6 of them to return as soon as possible to protect the Grand Marshal. Xia Xingchen's indifference, disdain, contempt, and arrogance were all pretended. The purpose was to disappoint Giles and others and return to protect Feng Bismarck. Alas, Xia Xingchen is too gentle, and he likes to bury things in his heart. Feng Bismarck sighed. He will inevitably be misunderstood and criticized by others for doing this. but I know that he is a kind-hearted child. Giles, do you know what to do now? Marshall, I understand. Giles nodded heavily and cut off the video. Boss, what does the marshal mean? What should we do now? Everyone still didn't understand. Of course we should catch up and protect Xia Xingchen. The rumors are true. He is a hero. Only people like him are qualified to be heroes. We must protect his safety. Giles said in a deep voice. Understood. Everyone nodded. Originally, they regarded protecting Xia Xingchen as a task. Now, they were determined to protect Xia Xingchen. Planet R14. Like most planets in the universe, this planet has no atmosphere, no water, and extremely low temperature, so life cannot survive on the planet. Since there are no mineral deposits on planet R14, and the geographical location is not advantageous, it is not even worth developing. No one knows that on this desolate and barren planet, there exists a mysterious ancient celestial relic. Swish. In the outer space of planet R14, the space is torn apart, and a space-time tunnel appears. A small starship emerges from the tunnel. In front of the porthole of the starship, a woman with a voluptuous figure, wearing a silver-tight combat suit and a head full of green snake hair looks at the desolate planet R14 with a smile in her eyes. Lady Medusa, I found signs of life on the surface of planet R14. An ugly man with a rat face and long pointed ears walked over and said, this man is called Bat, and his ability is brainwave detection. None of the instruments on the starship responded, but the Bat had already discovered traces of life on the planet R14. Oh. Who is it? Medusa raised her eyebrows and showed a wicked smile on her face. After brainwave matching, there is more than 98% chance that it is Xia Xingchen, said the Bat. Xia Xingchen had fought with the chosen organization before, and his brainwave pattern was recorded. Xia Xingchen. Great. This time, not only can we complete the mission, but we can also kill Xia Xingchen. Get rid of this big trouble. The true god will definitely reward us. Medusa smiled and nodded. Chapter 865 Silver Fragments. Swish. Planet R14. Outer space. The hatch of a small starship opened, and 6 mechas flew out in a line. The outer shells of these mechas have complicated and exquisite patterns, and they are all equipped with spiritual power paint. Lady Medusa, my ultrasonic mecha is too powerful. Inside a mecha with a strange shape that looks like a big bat, the ugly black-robed man Bat exclaimed loudly. Of course it is powerful. This is a new mecha developed by Dr. Jill, the smartest of our chosen ones. It is much more powerful than the broken copper and iron of the Northern Empire. Medusa is driving a Gorgon mecha. This mecha has a strange shape, and it is a beautiful woman holding a trident. Generally speaking, the shape of mechas is rough and more masculine, but some female mecha masters will make some requirements for their customized mechas. For example, the waist should be narrow, the chest should be fuller, and the legs should be longer. From the perspective of the mecha structure, these so-called beauties are useless except for weakening the performance of the mecha. However, female mecha masters would rather sacrifice the performance of the mecha in exchange for beauty. The Gorgon is equipped with 3 mental power paints, which are comparable to thunder. The paint skill is the extremely rare petrification, which is highly compatible with Medusa's own ability. And Medusa herself, under the catalysis of the genetic medicine of the chosen organization, her mental power exceeds level 50, equivalent to an S-level mecha master. As for the other 5 elite believers, their mental power is also above level 40, and the paint on the mecha is a set of 2. 6 painted mechas are airborne towards the desolate surface of the planet R14. But, lock on Xia Xingchen. Wait a minute, we will fight quickly. Xia Xingchen is not strong, but he is very slippery. Don't let him run away again. Medusa ordered loudly. Lady Medusa, don't worry. With the bonus of the ultrasonic coating, my detection ability has increased by more than 10 times. As long as Xia Xingchen is still on planet R14, no matter where he escapes to, even underground, he will never escape my detection. Bat is full of confidence. On planet R14, Xia Xingchen is driving the Xia mecha close to the surface, flying at high speed, with a tornado of smoke and dust behind him. Ancient celestial relics. Xia Xingchen is looking forward to it. He has been to Lingji Star, where there is a celestial relic. The huge galactic empire was established because the Qin royal family discovered the celestial relics on Lingji star and developed super technologies such as jump. So, what unknown secrets are hidden in the celestial relics on planet R14? But where are the celestial relics? Xia Xingchen looked at the desolate red earth with a thoughtful look on his face. The size of the planet R14 is not large, only half the size of the earth, and its gravity is much smaller, so its atmosphere is extremely thin. The surface of the planet is full of craters and craters, all caused by meteorite impacts in the universe. Such desolate planets are everywhere in the universe. It is hard to imagine that such an ordinary planet hides huge secrets. If the ruins are on the surface of the planet, they must have been discovered by human explorers long ago. It is very likely that the ruins of the celestial beings are hidden underground, just like the coffin planet. Xia Xingchen frowned. If the ruins of the celestial beings are really underground, things will be troublesome. With Xia Xingchen's ability alone, it is obviously impossible to search the entire R14 planet in a short time. No way, I can only try my best. Xia Xingchen turned on the metal detection device on the Xia Xingchen mecha. With the Xia Xingchen mecha within a radius of 2000 meters, including underground, if there are metal products, the detection device will scan them out. If the ruins of the celestial beings are more than 2000 meters deep underground, then Xia Xingchen will have no way. No response. No response. No response. Xia Xingchen searched for hundreds of kilometers, but the metal detector had no response, which made him a little discouraged. Xia Xingchen suddenly saw something shining on the ground in front of him. What is it? Xia Xingchen looked at the metal detector, but there was still no response on the instrument. Isn't it metal? Xia Xingchen was not a reckless person. He immediately focused his mind and extended his mental power in the direction of the flash. Xia Xingchen's mental power is mental telekinesis, which is not good at detection. However, when the mental power of Mecha Master reaches level 30, he can use mental power for detection. It is precisely because of this that a Mecha Master with a mental power of level 30 has a great advantage in obtaining information during mecha battles. This is. Xia Xingchen immediately felt a strong mental fluctuation, which was similar to Fill liquid metal. Fill liquid metal is a superalloy that is very sensitive to mental power. The mental power sensing device on the mecha, as well as the mental power coating, are all made of Fill liquid metal. However, the metal detector did not respond, which meant that it could not be Fill liquid metal. Maybe it is another substance that can cause mental power to fluctuate. Xia Xingchen was curious and drove the Xia Xingchen mecha to the range that the mental power had just scanned. In the middle of a rock crack, Xia Xingchen found a silver fragment the size of a human palm. What is it? The Xia Xingchen mecha took the fragment in his hand. This small piece actually weighed more than 1 ton, and its density was extremely high, exceeding all substances known to humans. The silver fragment reflected the light of the stars and lay quietly in the palm of the Xia Xingchen mecha. The detection devices carried on the mecha could not identify this fragment and thought it was an ordinary stone. But Xia Xingchen used mental power to scan it and was extremely shocked. The sensitivity of this fragment to mental power sensing is far greater than that of Fill liquid metal. If the sensitivity of Fill liquid metal is 1, then the silver fragment in Xia Xingchen's hand is 100. In other words, if humans obtain the technology to make this kind of fragment, then they can completely develop a new type of mental power sensing device. After being mounted on the mecha's reaction speed will be faster, and the synchronization rate between the mecha pilot and the mecha will be higher. At that time, the steel shell of the mecha will be no different from the human body. Oh my god. What kind of material is this? Xia Xingchen exclaimed. He just picked up a piece of debris on the R14 star, and it can cause a great revolution in mecha manufacturing. Then the secrets hidden in the Xianren ruins must be even more shocking. Chapter 866, Celestial Spaceship. Xia Xingchen's blood was boiling, and his heart was filled with incomparable shock. After keeping the silver fragment like a treasure, Xia Xingchen continued to move forward, not relying on instruments, but developing mental power, slowly exploring forward. Xia Xingchen had a feeling that there should be more silver fragments ahead. Sure enough, Xia Xingchen had just walked 10 kilometers when he found another silver fragment 10 meters underground. 8 kilometers later, There was another one. 3 fragments in 5 kilometers. 5 fragments in 3 kilometers. 10 fragments in 1 kilometer. The further he walked, the denser the silver fragments were. Finally, Xia Xingchen came to the middle of a huge meteorite crater, where there were more silver fragments, as many as hundreds of them. Here is. Xia Xingchen walked to the center of the meteorite crater, and found an oval object with a diameter of 50 meters. Strong mental fluctuations came from the oval object. Xia Xingchen slowly approached, and the mental fluctuations became stronger and stronger. The oval object in front of him was irregular in shape, and covered with dust. If observed from outer space, it would definitely be mistaken for a big rock. However, when Xia Xingchen walked 100 meters away, he found that this oval object seemed to be a spaceship. Is this spaceship the so-called remains of the celestial being? Xia Xingchen was a little excited and walked forward. The big hand of the Xia mecha wiped the surface of the oval object. Bang! The rocks on the surface of the object broke and fell off piece by piece, revealing a shell made of the same material as the silver fragments. It is indeed a spaceship. And it is a crashed spaceship. Those silver fragments fell from the spaceship. Xia Xingchen was shocked. But, if it is a spaceship of the celestial being, then why did it crash here? In the entire Milky Way, is there anyone who can hurt the powerful celestial being? Or, in the distant past, there are other celestial beings in the Milky Way. Xia Xingchen suddenly thought of lithium in speculation. A long time ago, the Milky Way was extremely prosperous, with thousands of completely different alien races. However, in just 300 years, all these races have become extinct. Only countless alien relics are left, buried in the wind and sand. Could it be that the celestial being is also extinct? Xia Xingchen felt a piercing chill. There might be some danger in this spaceship. Xia Xingchen was very cautious, and he was in awe of the unknown. The defense system of the Shinran spaceship might have failed long ago. However, even for the Shinran, the most common technology can harm humans. It's like a primitive man came to the human world today. If he touches anything, and touches the wire, he will be killed by the electric current. This is the gap in technology and the gap in civilization. Swish. At this moment, a silver light gate suddenly appeared 20 meters away from Xia Xingchen. This light gate is not high, only less than 3 meters high, and it is definitely impossible to enter with a mecha. Xia Xingchen did not dare to enter rashly, and observed from a distance. Should I go in or not? Xia Xingchen's mind was in a fierce battle. Go in. It is very likely to encounter danger. If you don't go in, then you can't know the secrets of the Shinran ruins. No, you can't go in. In the end, Xia Xingchen's reason overcame curiosity. Since I have found the exact location of the Shinran ruins, plus the silver fragments, it is enough to show that the Shinran ruins have extremely high research value. I will immediately inform Marshal Feng Bismarck, and he will definitely send a large army to capture the R14 planet. Then, let the Coffin Star send scientists and researchers to come and slowly study this spaceship. This is the safest way. In a flash, Xia Xingchen thought of the best way and prepared to return to the spaceship and use the superwave communicator to tell Marshal Feng Bismarck the news. However, at this time, the radar of the Xia mecha showed that 6 mechas were approaching rapidly from the air. Who are they? Is it Giles and the others? Xia Xingchen was slightly startled and looked up. In the air, there were 6 strangely shaped mechas approaching him at a very high speed. Not Giles, they are all painted mechas. Xia Xingchen saw that the shells of these mechas were all flashing with complicated and mysterious paint patterns. The leading mecha was surprisingly equipped with 3 spiritual power paints. The remaining 5 mechas were also equipped with 2 paint jobs. Who is it? How could he dispatch 6 painted mechas? Xia Xingchen's face changed drastically. If he was facing an ordinary mecha, Xia Xingchen relied on the superb performance of the Xia mecha. Even if he couldn't beat an S-class mecha master, he could still escape unscathed. However, the opponent was all painted mechas, just like the Xia mecha. Xia Xingchen's biggest advantage was wiped out. 1 against 6. There was no hope of victory. Xia Xingchen, thank you for helping us find the location of the Shinran ruins. To thank you, I'll give you a quick death. The Gorgon mecha was extremely fast, and it drew a light green track in the air, like a falling meteor, with incomparable power. Boom. Medusa knew the performance of God's gold very well, so she didn't use laser weapons, but directly fought in close combat. A trident appeared in the hand of the Gorgon, and it smashed down hard at the Xia Xingchen mecha. In an instant, Xia Xingchen felt that the air around him became sticky, and it became extremely difficult to move his hands and feet. Facing Medusa's attack, Xia Xingchen was so shocked that his face turned pale. Xia Xingchen was not a new soldier who had just entered the battlefield. He had experienced hundreds of battles, big and small, and he had seen the scene of life and death more than once. Logically speaking, Xia Xingchen should not be afraid of Medusa's attack. But Xia Xingchen was afraid at this moment, because the opponent was too powerful. Whether it was the level of mental power, the performance of the mecha, or the number of people, it was an all-round crushing. A feeling of extreme danger filled Xia Xingchen's mind, making his hair stand up, and he couldn't help feeling fear in his heart. This is the instinct of life. It is also Xia Xingchen's sixth sense that he has honed through the battlefield of life and death. Xia Xingchen even had a premonition that if he resisted, even with the Xia Xingchen mecha, he would be defeated in an instant and buried in the sea of stars. The other party must be a follower of the Shinran sect. No wonder Carlos told me to be careful of the Shinran sect and the messenger of God. The strength of the Shinran sect is too terrifying. With strong financial resources, they can get so many painted mechas. And the strength of the followers is also extremely terrifying. A hint of astonishment flashed in Xia Xingchen's eyes. Chapter 867 Genetic Compatibility 99.9%. One strike will kill you. I won't give you room to fight back. Medusa's eyes flashed with a strong murderous intent, and she shouted, "Petrify." The countless green snakes on Medusa's head began to wriggle wildly, and her eyes became blank. The huge mental power quickly poured into the mental power coating on the outside of the mecha. Swish. Two thin grey rays shot out from the eyes of the Gorgon. This light seemed to have no lethality, and it was extremely fast, hitting the left shoulder of the Xia Xingchen mecha. Snap, snap, snap. The part of the Xia Xingchen mecha that was hit immediately turned into a grey stone, and quickly spread to the whole body. Petrify? It's such a supernatural power. Xia Xingchen was shocked to find that the left side of the Xia Xingchen mecha had lost control. At the same time, a strong wind whistled overhead, and the trident had already smashed down fiercely. Die! Medusa shouted. The other 5 painted mechas formed a circle, surrounding the Xia Xingchen mecha in the center, cutting off all his escape routes. Let's fight! Xia Xingchen's eyes condensed, his eyes were determined, and he jumped out of the cockpit of the Xia Xingchen mecha. Xia Xingchen waved his hand, and put the half-petrified Xia Xingchen mecha into his mental space. The light gate was only 20 meters away. With Xia Xingchen's physical fitness, it only took 3 seconds. Whoosh! Xia Xingchen rushed into the flashing light gate in one step, and his figure completely disappeared. Boom! The trident fell hard behind Xia Xingchen, and smoke and dust rolled. Whoosh! After rushing into the light gate, Xia Xingchen felt that he was wrapped in a wave of energy, and at the same time, his eyes went black and his brain was dizzy. Xia Xingchen was very familiar with this feeling. It was an uncomfortable reaction that would only occur when making a jump. The farther the jump distance, the stronger this discomfort would be. However, the discomfort soon subsided, and Xia Xingchen opened his eyes and found himself in a silver passage. Intruder detected. Genetic identification in progress. Genetic match 99.9%. Confirmed human identity. Authorization. Normal. A female voice sounded directly in Xia Xingchen's mind. What shocked Xia Xingchen was that he could actually understand these words. I seem to have passed the spacecraft's identification procedure and obtained some permissions. Xia Xingchen was stunned and couldn't figure out what was going on. Obviously, the spacecraft's identification procedure is based on genes. The owner of the spacecraft is undoubtedly a celestial being, and Xia Xingchen is just a human. How could he pass the celestial being's genetic identification procedure? What about the 99.9% genetic match? Could it be that the genetic similarity between humans and celestial beings is 99.9%? One question after another hovered in Xia Xingchen's mind. However, Xia Xingchen discovered at this time that the light door behind him was not closed, but still open. Oh no. If the celestial beings follow us chasing, I'm no match. Xia Xingchen's heart sank suddenly. At this moment, outside the celestial being's spacecraft, he escaped again. Bat frowned. I can feel Xia Xingchen's brain waves. He is still alive, and in the spaceship. Can't escape. The light gate is still there. Medusa turned around and said to a man with a crocodile head, Weezer, go in and try it out. Faced with the unknown, Medusa was also a little hesitant and did not dare to test it herself. Yes, sir. Weezer said in a muffled voice, jumped off the mecha, and rushed directly into the light gate. Swish. A tall figure appeared in the light gate. It was a strong man with a crocodile head. His skin was covered with green scales. His eyes were fierce. He saw Xia Xingchen at a glance. Before Weezer could speak, a woman's voice sounded in his mind. Intruder detected. Genetic identification is in progress. The genetic match is less than 99.9%. Confirm the identity of the enemy. Attack. Swish. A beam of light shot out from the ceiling and hit Weezer's body. Ah. Weezer let out a painful wail, and his body quickly melted and turned into a pool of mud in the blink of an eye. With his last bit of strength, Weezer retreated from the light gate. Lady Medusa, save me. Weezer returned to the outside of the spaceship. He only had time to shout out one sentence before his body could no longer support him and turned into a pool of green liquid. Medusa and the remaining 4 cultists all saw Weezer's miserable condition. Gene collapse. Bat was so scared that his whole body trembled. He had seen more than once that humans who were injected with gene drugs had their genes collapsed because they could not bear the side effects of the drugs. In the incomparable pain, their bodies turned into a pool of green water. This way of death can be said to be the most painful way to die in the universe. Because this kind of pain is transmitted from the genetic level, it is more severe than the pain that penetrates into the bone marrow. Weezer, this idiot, was attacked by the defense system of the spaceship. Medusa cursed, turned around and asked Bat, are you sure Xia Xingchen is okay? Xia Xingchen is fine. He has left the vicinity of the light gate and is slowly moving forward. Bat closed his eyes and felt for a while, then said with certainty, Chameleon, you go. Medusa turned around and said to a man with dark green skin, Lady Medusa, even if I die, I don't want to die from gene collapse. Can you spare me this time? Chameleon was terrified, and his skin kept changing colors. He has the gene of chameleon in his body, and he is a good assassin. But when his emotions fluctuate, his skin will keep changing colors. Don't worry. Xia Xingchen is fine, and you will be fine too. Medusa persuaded. The idiot Weezer must have been attacked by Xia Xingchen. You are much smarter than Weezer, and you are good at hiding your body. Besides, Xia Xingchen has left the light gate. You will not be in any danger. Lady Medusa. Chameleon was shocked by the way Weezer died just now, and he was still a little hesitant. Are you going or not? If you don't, I will kill you now. Medusa threatened. I will petrify your body and then crush it piece by piece. This way of death is extremely painful, not much better than genetic collapse. Yes, sir. Chameleon shuddered. He knew that Medusa would keep her word, so he had to get off the mecha and slowly approach the light gate. Chameleon's experience was exactly the same as Weezer's. As soon as he entered the spaceship, he was hit by the light from the wall because his genetic compatibility was less than 99%. Chameleon didn't even have time to retreat, and he turned into a pool of green water on the spot. Lady Medusa. Chameleon is dead too. Bat said in a low voice with his head down. 2 of his men died inexplicably. Medusa was sure at this moment that this Shinran spaceship was extremely dangerous, and the end of passing through the light gate was a dead end. The question is, why is Xia Xingchen okay? Chapter 868 Ancient Humans. My lord, what should we do now? Bat asked. Wait. I don't believe he won't come out. Medusa said sternly. Waiting is a very stupid method. However, it is also the only way. Inside the Shinran spaceship, Xia Xingchen stood deep in the corridor, watching Weezer and Chameleon's genes collapse and die tragically in front of him. Xia Xingchen breathed a sigh of relief. At least he didn't have to worry about anyone chasing him in for the time being. At the same time, Xia Xingchen was sure of one thing. It was not accidental that he was able to pass the genetic test. Weezer and Chameleon were originally human beings, but because they were injected with genetic drugs, some beast genes were mixed into human genes, and they gained power beyond ordinary people. However, their genetic compatibility was less than 99.9%, and they were attacked by the spaceship, and their genes collapsed and died tragically. Humans who have undergone genetic modification cannot pass the genetic test of the Shinran spaceship, so other animals and alien life, whose genes are even more different from humans, are even less likely to pass the test. In other words, the genes of Shinran are extremely similar to those of humans. Could it be that Shinran and humans are from the same source? A shocking speculation emerged in Xia Xingchen's mind. This speculation was the only one that was most logical. Impossible. Human history is only tens of thousands of years old, and this Shinran spaceship may have existed for hundreds of millions of years. At that time, the Earth was still in the dinosaur era. Xia Xingchen shook his head, threw this bizarre idea behind him, and walked along the passage into the depths of the spaceship. TSK. Xia Xingchen walked to the end of the passage, and the hatch opened immediately. Why do I feel like I'm walking in a human starship? Xia Xingchen arrived at a hall and looked around. He found that the surrounding structures and furnishings had a sense of deja vu. They were all standard geometric shapes that conformed to human aesthetics. Xia Xingchen felt more and more strange. Different life groups, even if they have similar genes, have very different aesthetics. Even for humans, fat is beautiful in some periods, and thin is beautiful in other periods. Ding. At this moment, a voice rang out. Ah. Xia Xingchen was slightly startled and stopped in a hurry. The various instruments in the hall suddenly lit up, flashing various data on them. At the same time, a beam of light intersected in the center of the hall, forming a blue holographic image. The woman in a white dress was a beautiful woman with a height of 1.8 meters, a slim figure, and delicate features. Athena. When Xia Xingchen saw the woman's appearance, the first thing he thought of was Athena. However, Xia Xingchen quickly realized that she was not Athena. The two people looked very different. The reason why Xia Xingchen made a mistake was that the woman's beauty was the same as Athena's. Whether it was her figure or her appearance, it was impeccable from the perspective of human aesthetics. It can even be said that the woman in the holographic image was more perfect than Athena. Xia Xingchen was slightly absent-minded. Xia Xingchen, you are the first human to enter this spaceship in 500 million years. The woman looked directly at Xia Xingchen. Her voice was gentle, and she felt very comfortable. Who are you? Xia Xingchen was stunned for a moment, and the other party's voice sounded directly in his mind. The most shocking thing was that she actually knew his name. I'm Guide 1046, the artificial intelligence of this spaceship. No doubt, I can read your mind directly. The woman explained. An artificial intelligence can actually read my mind. Xia Xingchen was full of doubts. This artificial intelligence seemed to be more advanced than Carlos. Xia Xingchen, I can see that you are confused. Just ask and I can answer for you. The woman on the holographic image looked at Xia Xingchen and said, I do have a lot of doubts. Xia Xingchen nodded. The first question is, who is the owner of this spaceship? Swish. The woman did not explain directly. The holographic image changed to a city with tall buildings towering into the sky. It looked no different from a human metropolis. People were coming and going on the streets, and it looked extremely prosperous. The owner of this spaceship is the ancient humans, the greatest race in the universe. The guide explained. What you see is the city of the ancient humans. The picture changed again. This time it was a star map covered with countless swelling galaxies. Most of the galaxies were occupied by green. This is a holographic map of the universe. The spiral ones are galaxies, and the Milky Way is just one of them. Green represents the territory of the ancient humans. At their most powerful, the ancient humans occupied more than half of the universe. The female voice said, the Milky Way. Xia Xingchen found the Milky Way on the holographic map, which was as big as a soybean. In the entire universe, it is just a drop in the ocean. But the ancient humans occupied half of the entire universe. Xia Xingchen was secretly surprised. The territory of the ancient humans was so vast that they were the undisputed overlords of the universe. Ancient humans are celestial beings? Xia Xingchen felt a dry mouth. Of course. Ancient humans are the greatest celestial race. The guide had a hint of pride in his voice. The boundless sea of stars is their territory. All races in the universe must crawl at the feet of the ancient humans. Too powerful. Xia Xingchen blinked, his face full of longing. The universe is too big, and there are many alien races. In addition to the Milky Way, other galaxies have hundreds of races. Ancient humans stood at the top of all races in the universe, and were worshipped as gods by alien races. Just thinking about it made Xia Xingchen feel excited. However, the most powerful race in the universe, ancient humans, disappeared. The guide sighed. Why? Xia Xingchen was shocked. Ancient humans are celestial beings. Aren't celestial beings immortal? What's more, ancient humans are the greatest celestial beings. The real overlords of the universe. The power of ancient humans was feared by other celestial beings. Other celestial beings regarded ancient humans as a scourge, and attacked them in groups. No matter how strong ancient humans were, they were just one race. Under the siege of other celestial races in the universe, they were eventually defeated. The entire ancient human civilization was completely destroyed. And the Milky Way was one of the ancient battlefields of the war. The war of the celestial beings spread to the Milky Way and destroyed all the races living here, said the guide. Chapter 869 Galaxy Arc. Xia Xingchen finally understood why the Milky Way was so desolate. It turned out that the Milky Way was affected and completely destroyed in the war. The technology of the celestial beings was like that of gods. It could annihilate stars and create black holes in an instant. The war between the celestial beings caused destruction that Xia Xingchen could not imagine. The ancient humans were defeated, but they were unwilling to accept it. Therefore, the best of the ancient humans implemented the Spark Plan. The ancient humans first changed the galactic laws of the Milky Way to prevent the celestial beings from entering the Milky Way. Then, they used spacecraft to sow seeds on habitable planets in the Milky Way. The Earth in the solar system is an important target of the sowing plan. In fact, there are more than 30,000 sowing planets in the entire Milky Way, and only humans on Earth have survived. Humans on Earth are descendants of ancient humans. The guide explained. I'm the guide, responsible for bringing humans into the ancient human spacecraft and inheriting the ancient humans' heritage. Xia Xingchen, you are the chosen human. Ancient human heritage. Xia Xingchen looked unbelievable. This is simply a pie in the sky. It actually fell on his head. Do you think it's a good thing? The guide said lightly. There are 30,000 guide spaceships for 30,000 seeding planets. There are also guide spaceships on the ancient Earth. You are not the first human to enter the guide spaceship. However, so far, the number of people who can successfully pass the trial and obtain the inheritance of ancient humans is 0. You mean, in order to obtain the inheritance of ancient humans, you need to pass some trial? Xia Xingchen was a little surprised. Of course. The guide nodded. To inherit the ancient humans means to shoulder the mission of reviving mankind and to strive to make mankind become celestial beings again. This is not something that the weak can accomplish. I still don't quite understand. Xia Xingchen frowned. If humans are descendants of ancient humans, they have the powerful blood of celestial beings flowing in their veins. However, although today's humans dominate the galaxy, they do not have much advantage over other alien races. The body is not strong, and the IQ is not high enough, especially the lifespan. So far, the longest lived human has not exceeded 200 years old. The number of cell separations is limited, because there are celestial beings who have locked human genes. The guide said directly, human lifespan should have been very long. However, for some reason, human genes were locked by a super civilization. You can recall that in the early days of the Earth, human lifespan should have been very long. Indeed, in ancient Earth, whether in Eastern or Western mythology, human lifespan was very long. Xia Xingchen thought for a while and nodded. With your current authority, I can only tell you this much. Now, you can choose whether to take the trial to obtain the inheritance of the ancient humans. The guide waved his hand, and the instrument in front opened. A platform rose up, and inside was a metal pendant, flashing a cold blue light. This is the teleporter to the ancient human galaxy arc. It can be used within the Milky Way, allowing you to teleport directly to the inside of the galaxy arc. There are more secrets in the galaxy arc, the guide said. However, you must pass the primary trial before you have the authority to get the teleporter. A teleporter that can be used in any corner of the galaxy? Xia Xingchen licked his lips. Humanity's current technology is simply unable to manufacture individual teleportation devices, and it does not even have the ability to copy them. The gap in technology is really too big. Is the trial dangerous? Xia Xingchen hesitated. Of course there are dangers. According to my assessment of your strength, the probability of you passing the trial is less than 1%. The probability of you dying in the trial is more than 87%. The guide said with some disdain. Your mental power is too weak. Even the mental power fluctuations of newly born ancient humans are stronger than yours. The probability of death is so high. Only fools would participate in the trial. If I don't participate in the trial, will there be any consequences? Xia Xingchen was dumbfounded. With your authority, you can leave the spaceship at any time. The guide said immediately. Leave. Those guys from the Shinran sect are blocking the door of the spaceship. How can I leave? Xia Xingchen was helpless. Is there any weapon on this spaceship? Let me repel the enemies at the door. Or, this spaceship can fly away directly. The spaceship is seriously damaged. The weapon system and flight system are completely damaged, and the energy circulation system will fail in 800 years. The guide said truthfully. I don't participate in the trial. Just stay in the spaceship. There will be no problem. Xia Xingchen asked. No problem. The guide replied. Well, I'll hide here and not go out. I'll fight with these guys outside. Let's see who collapses first. Xia Xingchen laughed. He prepared a lot of food and water in the spiritual space, enough for him to eat for 3 months. Let's not talk about whether the people outside have the patience to wait for 3 months. After such a long time, Marshal Feng Bismarck must know that something happened to Xia Xingchen and will send a rescue team. As for the trial, Xia Xingchen doesn't want to miss this good opportunity. After all, it is the inheritance of ancient humans. However, the mortality rate is too high. Xia Xingchen doesn't want to die here inexplicably because of greed. Anyway, Xia Xingchen is in the spaceship with food and drink and can drag the space combat suit to breathe and can also chat with the guide to understand the greatness of ancient humans. Medusa and the other 4 outside can only hide in the mecha and worry. In the blink of an eye, 3 days have passed. Outside the spaceship, in the cockpit of the Gorgon, Medusa is already a little impatient. The performance of the painted mecha is very strong, but it also has a disadvantage. That is, the energy consumption is too fast. The mecha is equipped with a nuclear fusion engine, and it consumed a nuclear fuel rod in 3 days. Medusa brought a total of 3 nuclear fuel rods. At this rate, it can only support for 10 days at most. Lady Medusa, Xia Xingchen is hiding in the spaceship and won't come out. I don't know how long he will wait. A man with a gloomy face spoke. His face is not much different from that of a normal person, but his face is green and there is a circle of webbed flesh behind his ears. He has a terrifying code name Cobra. Among the remaining 4th person, except for Medusa, he is the strongest. What can you do? Medusa glanced at Cobra. My venom mecha is highly toxic and corrosive. Even diamonds will be corroded. I can try to attack the spaceship. Maybe it will work. Cobra is very confident in his ability. Idiot. Do you know what you are facing? That's the celestial spaceship. Your venom can't possibly work. Moreover, it is likely to trigger the spaceship's defense mechanism and kill us instantly. Have you forgotten what happened to Chameleon and Riza? Medusa said coldly. Cobra was scolded, and his face became even gloomier. He lowered his head and said nothing. At this time, Bat suddenly shouted, 5 mechas are approaching us rapidly at a distance of 20 kilometers to the east. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 870 Captured. R14. But, who are those 5? Medusa frowned. They are probably the Galactic Empire Army. Bat immediately replied, I can't match their brainwave frequencies. They are strangers I have never seen before. Judging from the brainwave intensity, one of them is a quasi S-class mecha division, and the other 4 are 2 A-class mecha divisions and 2 B-class mecha divisions. The Galactic Empire Army, one of which is a quasi S-class mecha division, it seems to be a strong team. Medusa speculated, such a team suddenly appeared on this desolate planet. It must be related to Xia Xingchen. Lord Medusa, what should we do? Bat asked. Don't do anything. I want to capture them alive. Medusa laughed. Swish, 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 swish. 5 mechas sped through the air, with the cross-star emblem of the Galactic Empire Army on the outer shell of the mecha. In the leading mecha, Giles was frowning and looking down at the 4 green dots scanned on the radar. Boss. The black man Moshe called out, we have been searching on R14 for 3 days, and only found Xia Xingchen's spaceship, not him and his mecha. Now, 4 unrecognizable mechas have appeared in front of us. They are probably the Northern Army. I know. Giles nodded slightly. It is impossible for the 5 of us to search the entire planet. These 4 strange mechas may know the whereabouts of Xia Xingchen. Let's fly over and find out where Xia Xingchen is. What if they don't say? Moshe asked. Not going to say, just kill them. They are enemies anyway. Giles said coldly. Haha, there are only 4 people on the other side. We have 5. It's unfair to outnumber the weak. Why don't you just stand aside and watch? We'll beat them one-on-one. Let these cowards in the north see how powerful our Galactic Empire warriors are. Yeah, boss, you're so strong. Don't make a move, just stand aside and watch. The other mecha masters all said with a smile, am I really that strong? Giles didn't answer, but a bitter smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. As a quasi S-class mecha master, he was defeated by Xia Xingchen, a B-class mecha master not long ago. Whether it was because of the suppression of mecha performance, or because of underestimation of the enemy, defeat is defeat. Giles is not a narrow-minded person. This tragic defeat made Giles understand the truth. Humans have limits, but technology has no limits. No matter how strong he is, driving a rubbish mecha, he can never be the opponent of advanced mecha. After completing this task, Giles is going to go back, take out all the money he has saved over the years, and go to the Tang Dynasty group to build a most advanced mecha for himself. Then, Giles will go to Xia Xingchen to challenge him again, to see who is stronger. The mecha is very fast, breaking the speed of sound, and the distance of 20 kilometers is reached in an instant. Be polite before using force. Giles reminded, our goal is not to fight, but to find Xia Xingchen. Yes. The 4 mecha masters nodded and said, huh. Giles drove the Space Knight closer and saw a strange mecha with obvious female characteristics suspended in the air in front of him. The shape of this mecha is not in the sequence of commonly used mecha models. It is clearly a customized mecha. Moreover, there is no polar bear emblem of the Northern Army on the outer shell of the mecha, but complex patterns flashing with grey light. Isn't it the Northern Army? Giles was slightly startled and immediately made a voice request. Most mecha masters are big and strong men, and female mecha masters are rare. Naturally, they will respect female mecha masters. Madam, may I ask if you have seen a man named Xia Xingchen? Giles spoke very gentlemanly. Sure enough, you are here to find Xia Xingchen. Medusa sneered. That's right, we are. Giles was about to explain his identity. However, the next moment, the Gorgon mecha was waving its trident and flying towards Giles. At the same time, Medusa's eyes condensed, and a strong mental wave broke out with her as the center. Ah, it's an S-class mecha master. And the mysterious pattern on the outside of this mecha, like Xia Xingchen's Xianheng mecha, is equipped with a mental power coating. Giles was sharp and immediately judged that the opponent's mental power was as high as level 50. A chill instantly swept through his whole body, and all the hairs on his body stood up. Run. Everyone, scatter and run away immediately. Whoever can escape is a good one. I will contain her. Giles reacted very quickly and immediately issued a retreat order. Giles was no match for a B-class mecha master driving a painted mecha. What's more, the enemy was an S-class mecha master. Giles knew very well that the enemy was too powerful and his group of people together were no match. He could only run. Run. There's only one person on the other side. Why run? Let's fight. We are not cowards. The enemy is a woman. I'm not afraid of her. However, the other 4 mecha masters have not yet realized how terrifying the enemy they are facing is. Not only did they not run away, but they were full of fighting spirit and followed Giles to meet him. Idiots. A bunch of idiots. Giles cursed, but his nose was sore and his eyes were wet. Run away. Can he really run away? The opponent is an S-class mecha master. S-class mecha masters all have a terrifying skill, teleportation. In a head-on battle, the teleportation skill is not very useful. However, in a pursuit battle, the teleportation skill is a magical skill. No low-level mecha master can escape the pursuit of an S-class mecha master, including Giles himself. Since you can't run away, brothers, follow me to fight to the death. Giles roared and stopped thinking about running away. The 5 of them formed a battle formation and rushed towards the Gorgon mecha. Stupid. Medusa's mouth corners raised and a contemptuous smile appeared. Swish. The huge figure of the Gorgon flashed in the air, and the next moment, it suddenly appeared in the middle of Giles and the other 4. Petrify. Medusa shouted, and the powerful mental wave spread out. The whole body of the Gorgon was emitting grey petrifying light. Snap. 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 Giles didn't even have time to make a move, and his mechas were all petrified along with the other 4 mecha masters, unable to move. One move. In the cockpit, Giles was mad, shaking the joystick desperately, but the mecha didn't move. The other 4 mecha masters were all shocked to see that their mechas were petrified. Lord Medusa, too strong. I have never seen a mecha master as strong as you. Bat saw that Medusa instantly killed 5 mechas above B level, including a quasi S level mecha master. In addition to being astonished, he quickly flattered her. No wonder the envoy of God thinks highly of Medusa, and even promised her that, as long as she completes this task, she will be promoted to the deputy leader of the Shinran sect. Medusa's mental strength is not only high, but her ability petrification is rated A, and her combat power is extremely strong. Unfortunately, although my brain detection is one of the strongest detection abilities, it is not worth mentioning in terms of combat power. I must find a way to curry favor with Medusa and hold her thigh tightly. Bat thought silently. Chapter 871 Trial Space. So strong. Stronger than me. Cobra's face was gloomy, his eyes flashed with hatred, and he was silently calculating in his heart. However, my venom ability may not be inferior to hers. After all, she is a woman, and she can't achieve great things. From her ordering Chameleon to die, we can see that this woman has a limited IQ. Hey, Chameleon is my brother. He is proficient in assassination and has strong combat power, but it's a pity that he did nothing. Just because of this woman, Medusa died tragically. The last elite cultist is Medusa's confidant, called Unicorn. He looks like a human male, but he has a sharp horn like a bull on his head. He has been silent and obeyed Medusa's orders. But, Cobra, Unicorn, the 3 of you catch the enemy from the cockpit. Medusa ordered arrogantly. Yes, sir. The 3 people had their own thoughts. They dragged Giles and the other 5 out of the cockpit of the mecha, tied their hands, and pushed them to the front of the Shinran spaceship. At this moment, Xia Xingchen was meditating in the Shinran spaceship, and suddenly the guide reminded him, some changes have occurred outside. Do you want to take a look? Oh, of course. Xia Xingchen didn't know what happened outside. Swish. The scene outside has been completely simulated, and a hologram appeared in front of Xia Xingchen. Giles. Xia Xingchen's pupils suddenly shrank, and he saw Giles tied up at a glance. Damn it. Didn't I tell them to go back? Why are they following me again? Xia Xingchen's heart tightened. Xia Xingchen didn't blame Giles. He was just following the orders of the Grand Marshal. Even though he was insulted by himself, he still followed me to protect me. Xia Xingchen was moved and regarded Giles as his friend. Xia Xingchen was anxious when his friend fell into the hands of the enemy. Xia Xingchen, I know you can hear me. Bat shouted loudly. Lady Medusa has an order. I'll give you 10 minutes. If you don't come out of the spaceship, let these 5 people die in front of you. Giles and the other 5 people's faces changed immediately, not because of fear, but because they didn't expect that Xia Xingchen was really here, and they became bargaining chips to threaten Xia Xingchen. Damn it. As a bodyguard, I not only failed to protect Xia Xingchen, but was caught by the enemy and held him back. Giles was full of resentment. He wanted to shout, asking Xia Xingchen not to care about his own safety and never come out. However, there is a vacuum on the planet R14, and the sound cannot be transmitted without the communicator. What should I do? Inside the Shinran spaceship, Xia Xingchen clenched his hands tightly. Xia Xingchen, let me remind you. You are no match for the enemy outside. Your chance of winning is infinitely close to 0. Even if you rush out, you will die. The guide's cold voice sounded. Of course I know. Xia Xingchen yelled, but, do I have a choice? I can't watch my friends die in front of me. I would rather die with them. Although I know this is irrational. You still have a choice. The guide looked at the blue necklace floating in the air, which was the teleportation device to the galaxy arc. If you pass the trial, you can get the teleporter. As long as you can meet your friends, you can teleport to the galaxy arc with them. Although the situation of the galaxy arc is also unknown, and may be full of dangers. But it's better to die there. Trial. I only have 10 minutes. Xia Xingchen shook his head and smiled bitterly. Too late. Too late. 10 minutes. It's enough. The guide smiled. Xia Xingchen, are you willing to enter the trial and get the ancient human heritage? The mortality rate of the trial is extremely high, close to 87%. In other words, Xia Xingchen only has a 1 in 10 chance of surviving. Originally, Xia Xingchen didn't plan to enter the trial because the mortality rate was too high. Xia Xingchen didn't want Princess Crossing to be a widow before he married her. However, Xia Xingchen didn't have any choice at the moment. I do. Xia Xingchen's eyes were firm, and he said without hesitation, you sit over there and put on the consciousness sensor helmet. The guide pointed to a chair in the corner, with a silver helmet next to it. Consciousness projector? Xia Xingchen was slightly startled. Yes, this is a virtual space device. It can project your consciousness into the virtual space. Why haven't you humans on Earth developed this technology yet? The guide was a little surprised. No. Xia Xingchen shook his head. Humans' research on their own consciousness is quite backward. There have only been some breakthroughs in recent years. This may be related to the human gene being locked. The guide didn't say much. Put on the helmet. You will enter a 100% simulated virtual trial world. There is not much difference from the real world. In the virtual world, if you die, then you in reality will also be brain dead. Understood. Xia Xingchen didn't hesitate too much, put the helmet on his head, and lay flat on the chair. The trial has begun. But, the moment he put on the helmet, Xia Xingchen only heard a buzzing sound, and his eyes went black. He opened his eyes again. Xia Xingchen found himself floating in the vast starry sky. The galaxy was vast and boundless. Compared to the vast starry sky, he was not even a grain of sand. Weak. Too weak. Xia Xingchen hugged his body involuntarily to suppress the chill spreading from the bottom of his heart. It was simply impossible for such a weak race to survive in the cruel universe. Swish. The scene changed again. Xia Xingchen found himself in an empty room with nothing but bare white walls. Xia Xingchen. A voice called behind him. Turning around, Xia Xingchen saw a tall woman in a white dress who looked like a guide. However, in the outside world, the guide was a hologram. Here, the guide was a living person. She was so beautiful, she looked more lively than outside. Beautiful to the point of suffocation. Where is this? Xia Xingchen asked. This is the trial space. You are absolutely safe in this room. You can meditate in the room to improve your strength. The flow of time here is slower than in the outside world. 1 minute outside is equivalent to 1 month here. In other words, you have 10 months to pass the trial. The guide waved his hand, and dense patterns appeared on the blank wall in an instant. Most of them were starry sky patterns such as stars, black holes, and comets. There were also some animals and plants, such as weeds sprouting, and lambs kneeling to suckle. There were also some extremely rare patterns, which were some geometric figures and abstract paintings. Chapter 870 To avoid brain demon. These are all meditation pictures. You can use them to meditate. The guide said. So many? Xia Xingchen smacked his lips. Just a glance showed that there were tens of thousands of meditation pictures. You know, in the Galactic Empire, meditation pictures, especially advanced meditation pictures, are priceless. It's useless to have more. The best one is the one that suits you. The guide explained. Then, how can I pass the trial? Xia Xingchen asked. Come with me. The guide took Xia Xingchen to the window of the room. Standing there and looking out, there was a deep dark space without light. There was no matter, not even starlight, just a piece of darkness. This is the Xingqian. The guide said, the empty space between galaxies. There is nothing here. Even celestial beings may get lost in the Xingqian. Celestial beings can get lost too. Xia Xingchen was secretly shocked. However, the Xingqian is not really empty. Look. The guide pointed with his hand. From the emptiness of the Xingqian, a red object flew slowly over. This thing was dark red in color, about the size of a basketball, and covered with winding grooves on its surface. It looked very similar to a brain. However, there was a thin tube growing in the front of the brain. So disgusting. What is this? Xia Xingchen couldn't help but shudder. It is the famous void brain demon. It is the most common alien species in Xingqian, and one of the dominant creatures that dominates Xingqian. It has a low IQ and is bloodthirsty. It only knows how to suck the brains of intelligent races. And its body is very fragile, even worse than that of humans on Earth. However, its mental power is very strong. An adult void brain demon is equivalent to an S-level mecha master with a mental power of level 50. Moreover, void brain demons are proficient in illusions. Their method of hunting is to make the prey fall into illusions and sink into them. Then they use a hose to pierce through the nostrils and suck the brain. The guide said, the content of your trial is to kill this void brain demon. I don't have any weapons. How can I kill it? Outside is the universe. I don't have a space combat suit. I can't even leave this room. Xia Xingchen said. You are a mental projection now, and you don't need to breathe at all. As for weapons, try it and imagine the most powerful self. The guide smiled. Xia Xingchen suddenly realized. After all, this is a virtual world, and the laws of physics are different from those in the outside world. Xia Xingchen followed the guide's instructions, closed his eyes and imagined. When he opened his eyes, he found himself riding on the Xia Xingchen mecha. Whatever you want, you can do it. Isn't this a dream? Xia Xingchen drove the Xia Xingchen mecha, and felt full of strength. Whatever you want. You just need to defeat the void brain demon to pass the trial. I remind you that you'd better meditate in this room for a while, otherwise, said the guide. Before the guide finished speaking, Xia Xingchen had already rushed out of the room and the Xia Xingchen mecha. I don't have much time. I really can't wait. I will try my best to be careful and try its ability. If it is not an opponent, I will retreat in time. Young people are too impulsive. The guide shook his head slightly. Swish. In the blink of an eye, the huge Xia Xingchen mecha has arrived in front of the void brain demon. The void brain demon is only the size of a basketball, and its whole body is wrapped in a layer of transparent film. The red brain ball under the film trembles slightly, looking very fragile. The Xia Xingchen mecha is 9 meters tall. In front of the void brain demon, it is a giant. It can crush it with just one finger. The universe is so vast that nothing is impossible. It's hard to imagine that such a fragile race is actually one of the overlords that swept across Xingqian. Xia Xingchen looked at the void brain demon and felt that it was extremely fragile and vulnerable. Die. The void brain demon suddenly sent out a strong mental wave and rushed towards Xia Xingchen. But Xia Xingchen felt a terrifying force violently impacting his brain. The scene in front of him began to distort and turned into a huge vortex black hole, instantly swallowing the Xia Xingchen mecha. No. I can't die. The Xia Xingchen mecha was instantly torn to pieces by the huge power of the black hole, and Xia Xingchen's body was still struggling desperately in the vortex. However, the struggle was in vain, and Xia Xingchen was pulled into the black hole little by little. I finally met the trialist. If I die immediately, wouldn't I have waited for so many years in vain? I don't know when my mission will be completed. I can't transcend. The figure of the guide stood in the void. Seeing Xia Xingchen being defeated by the void brain demon in an instant, she showed reluctance in her eyes. After a long while, she finally shook her head. Forget it, I'll help you a little. Snap. The illusion was shattered. Xia Xingchen was shocked to find that he was standing in the void. The black hole had disappeared without a trace, but the Xianheng mecha had been completely shattered. The void brain demon floated in front of him and was slowly poking the thin tube on his forehead into his nostrils. If it was a few seconds later, Xia Xingchen's brain marrow would be sucked dry by the void brain demon, and he would die directly and fail the trial. Whoosh. Xia Xingchen was extremely shocked and panicked. He pushed the void brain demon away and fled back to the room. He held the wall, panting violently, and his whole body was soaked with cold sweat. What a close call. I would have died in just a few seconds. Fortunately, the illusion suddenly broke and saved my life. Xia Xingchen was terrified. The void brain demon is so powerful. No wonder it is a dominant creature sweeping across Xingyuan. A few minutes later, Xia Xingchen finally calmed down. Thinking of the battle just now, he couldn't help but exclaimed, "This trial is too difficult. The mortality rate is as high as 87%. The guide didn't lie to me. Meditation. Cultivate mental power. I'm too weak. Within 10 months, I must improve my mental power as much as possible. Kill the void brain demon and pass the trial." Xia Xingchen quickly calmed down. Knowing the gap between himself and the void brain demon not only did not make him panic, but instead stimulated the idea of not admitting defeat in his heart. Xia Xingchen sat cross-legged in front of a meditation picture of the three-body planet, calmed down, and began to meditate and practice. Only 10 months, must go all out. Xia Xingchen quickly entered a meditative state and immersed himself in it. Well, I didn't expect that with his impetuous personality, he could enter meditation so quickly. Maybe, he can really pass the test. The guide nodded slightly, and a smile of approval appeared on her beautiful face. The three-body meditation diagram. Sure enough, there are some tricks. Xia Xingchen sat cross-legged in front of this meditation diagram for 3 months, and finally understood some principles. In the past, Xia Xingchen only used the crystal pyramid for meditation. Meditation is efficient, but when it reaches a certain level, it will encounter a bottleneck. The efficiency cannot be improved, and the spiritual power training will stop. This time, Xia Xingchen tried to use other meditation diagrams to practice, and surprisingly passed the bottleneck smoothly. Chapter 873 Passing the Trial. One can polish jade with the help of other people's stones. I can't be narrow-minded and focus on one meditation picture. I should learn from the best of all. Xia Xingchen understood this truth. Without any hesitation, he immediately sat down in front of a meditation picture called Sand Dune and started meditating again. Sand Dune was ingrained in his mind. Xia Xingchen immediately changed the meditation picture again. This time, the meditation picture was a space door shining with silver light, standing alone in the endless void. It was called Silver Key Gate. In 3 months, Xia Xingchen changed more than 1,000 meditation pictures. According to the guide, these meditation pictures are real scenes in the universe, containing the deepest mysteries of the universe. With Xia Xingchen's current strength, of course, it is impossible to see any deep mysteries. He can only comprehend some superficial knowledge. However, even these superficial knowledges have benefited Xia Xingchen a lot. His mental power level has soared rapidly from level 34 to level 39. Finally, my mental power is going to reach level 40. Xia Xingchen was excited. When the mental power reaches level 40, the Mecha Master can use his mental power to explore the microscopic world. The pattern on the back of an ant, the flapping wings of a butterfly in a flower, the swaying tail of a fish in the water. These details can be explored with mental power. As the mental power level gets higher and higher, the microscopic world that the Mecha Master can explore becomes wider and wider, and it is even possible to reach the point of one grain of sand, one world. In the eyes of a legendary Mecha Master, a grain of sand is as broad, beautiful and colorful as a world. In mecha battles, Mecha Masters with mental power at level 40 can manipulate mechas more delicately, make many incredible macro manipulations, and even change the situation of the battle. At that time, in the asteroid belt, Kenichi Miyamoto and others fought against Shaxin, the deputy leader of the Snow Demon Knights, and were defeated by his macro manipulation. Kenichi Miyamoto's swordsmanship is superb and his attacks are sharp. Xia Xingchen's doomsday catastrophe mecha is not known for its speed, but it can dodge his attacks in a subtle way. Mecha masters call this ability into the micro. Under the same mecha performance, the mecha master who has mastered subtlety can be said to be a sure winner. Xia Xingchen, your mental power is almost enough now, and you can resist the illusion of the void brain demon. Do you want to challenge it again? The guide was shocked by Xia Xingchen's rapid improvement. Can you resist it now? Xia Xingchen licked his lips. He knew that, since the guide had spoken, it meant that he had a great advantage over the void brain demon. But, no. I still want to practice for a while. I want to break through the bottleneck of level 39, and enter level 40. Xia Xingchen's eyes were firm. Practicing mental power is a slow process. As long as you are willing to spend time, with the help of mental power potions and instruments, you can improve it sooner or later, if there is no bottleneck. However, everything is not smooth sailing, and there are bottlenecks. When there is no bottleneck, it is handy and twice the result with half the effort. But when you encounter a bottleneck, you get half the result with twice the effort, and no matter how much time you spend, it is in vain. Xia Xingchen has encountered bottlenecks several times before, and he was very distressed. Fortunately, he was lucky. After having sex with several women, he unexpectedly broke through. Good luck can be good for a while, but it can't last forever. In this virtual space, the speed of cultivating mental power is 100 times faster than outside. He wanted to take this opportunity to break through the bottleneck. There are still 7 months left. Xia Xingchen is ready to give it a try. 5 months later, Xia Xingchen finally stood up, his eyes shining brightly. Finally broke through. It was so difficult. Xia Xingchen let out a long roar. It only took Xia Xingchen 3 months to go from level 34 to level 39. However, it took him 5 months to go from level 39 to level 40. Even with the help of the virtual space, Xia Xingchen still took 5 months. If it was in the outside world, this time would be 10 times, or even dozens of times, difficult. It is really difficult to cultivate mental power. However, Xia Xingchen succeeded after all. Into the micro. Xia Xingchen squinted his eyes and savored the vastness of the microscopic world. With Xia Xingchen's mental strength, he can directly observe the molecular level, and the atomic level is a blur. Into the micro does not improve the mecha battle significantly, but only some minor changes, which can turn the tide of the battle at a critical moment. However, Xia Xingchen found that after he mastered into the micro, it seemed that the efficiency of making mental coatings was greatly improved. As for how much it has improved, it still needs to be practiced to know. This is an unexpected surprise. Void Brain Demon, your death is coming. Xia Xingchen shouted, stepped out of the room, came to the void, and stood in front of the Void Brain Demon. Xia Xingchen did not drive the mecha, but his body faced the terrifying Void Brain Demon. After 8 months of practice, Xia Xingchen has understood. In the virtual space, it is not the outside world that is powerful, but oneself. No matter how powerful the Xia Xingchen mecha is, it cannot be brought into the virtual space. The Xia Xingchen mecha that appears in this space is actually one's own mental power. Driving or not driving the Xia Xingchen mecha is actually the same in the virtual space. Boy, you're here again. Hurry up. I'm starving. Let me eat your brain. The scarlet void brain demon floated in the void, emitting waves of mental power, and an extremely evil voice sounded directly in Xia Xingchen's mind. You can try. Xia Xingchen smiled coldly. Without saying anything, the void brain demon cast an illusion, and attacked Xia Xingchen's brain again. This time, the void brain demon cast a lustful illusion. In front of Xia Xingchen, countless beautiful girls in white gauze appeared, surrounding him and making provocative movements. Suddenly, his mind was filled with obscene sounds. Break. Xia Xingchen's face did not change, and he shouted loudly, and the illusions in his mind were all shattered. The void brain demon was shocked. Why is your mental power so strong all of a sudden? In just a few months, I can't control you. Your illusion is good. But, fake is fake. Xia Xingchen's body suddenly turned into a huge mecha, and one finger crushed the fragile body of the void brain demon. Puff. The void brain demon shattered and turned into a pool of blood. Congratulations, you passed the trial. Xia Xingchen opened his eyes and found himself flying in the spaceship with a consciousness helmet on his head. The guide on the hologram said with a smile. On the hologram next to it, the bat was still clamoring loudly and counting down, taking Giles and others hostage, forcing Xia Xingchen to get out of the Shinran spaceship. The trial space, 8 months of hard training, the terrifying void brain demon. Xia Xingchen felt very unreal, like he had a dream. No, not a dream. Closing his eyes, feeling the mental power surging in his mind. The mental power level has reached level 40. Xia Xingchen clenched his fists tightly and said in a deep voice. Chapter 874, The Power of the New Paint. Of course it's not a dream. You have passed the test and obtained the permission to the Galaxy Arc transmitter. The guide smiled, and my mission has finally been completed. The barriers around the transmitter opened, and the necklace flashing with blue light slowly floated to Xia Xingchen's hand. Beep, beep. Self-destruction program activated. All crew members please leave the spacecraft within 1 minute. A shrill alarm sounded on the radio. Xia Xingchen did not hesitate at all, grabbed the necklace, and turned to run towards the light gate. The moment Xia Xingchen rushed out of the light gate, the Shinran spacecraft disappeared. There was no explosion, no light, no heat, no sound, just disappeared out of thin air. Xia Xingchen knew that this Shinran spacecraft and Guide 1046 had completed their mission as guides and disappeared from the universe forever. Thank you. Xia Xingchen put the necklace on his chest and whispered. Haha, Xia Xingchen, I didn't expect you to really come out. The harsh voice of the bat sounded in Xia Xingchen's ears. Xingchen, what are you doing out here? Giles looked painful. If Xia Xingchen was killed to save him, Giles would never forgive himself in his life. Xia Xingchen, you are so brave. Tell me, why did the Shinran spaceship disappear? Medusa asked loudly. You won't understand, even if I tell you. Xia Xingchen smiled faintly. This spaceship belongs to humans. Aliens like you will never understand, and will never be able to inherit humans. Looking for death. A mere B-class mecha master, relying on the good performance of his mecha, dares to speak so arrogantly. Medusa was furious. She was originally a human, but now she has become a monster with snake hair. Although Medusa was brainwashed by the Shinran sect, she thought that she was a higher life, higher than the lower life like humans. But deep in her heart, she still cared about her appearance. Lady Medusa, judging from his mental fluctuations, he has become an A-class mecha master. The bat detected Xia Xingchen's brain waves and found something that made him feel incomprehensible. A-class mecha master? You mean his mental power has reached level 40? Impossible. It's only been a few minutes. Even if it's the genetic medicine given by the true god, it will take a year to fully adapt. Medusa's voice trembled. It must be because of that Shinran spaceship. Xia Xingchen must have had some adventure in the spaceship, which instantly improved his mental power level. Oh my god. Too powerful. Catch him. You must catch him alive and find out the whereabouts of the Shinran spaceship. Cobra. Go and catch Xia Xingchen, alive. Medusa ordered. You actually let me take the great credit of catching Xia Xingchen? Cobra was shocked, knowing that Medusa couldn't figure out Xia Xingchen's strength now, and wanted to let him test the waters. Humph. It's just a mere A-class mecha master. Too many A-class mecha masters have died at my hands. Medusa must have made a wrong calculation this time. Cobra snorted coldly, driving the venom mecha and striding forward. The venom mecha was purple all over, and white poisonous smoke was coming out of it. Even if you smell it, you will be poisoned and die immediately. The most powerful thing is the 2 poison needles hidden in the head of the venom mech. These 2 poison needles are extremely poisonous. The toxins can melt steel. Not to mention human flesh. Even the steel body of the mech will be corroded, and a big hole will be formed. With this killer, Cobra was fearless, and came in front of Xia Xingchen. The venom mech stretched out its hand, and grabbed the Xia mech. Xia Xingchen glanced at Cobra coldly. The Xia mech suddenly turned around, waved his hand, and hit the chest of the venom mech with his fist. Bang! There was a dull sound. The venom mech was like a kite with a broken string. It flew backwards for a distance of 1,000 meters, and fell heavily to the ground like a broken sack. The chest of the Venom Mech was pierced by a huge force, and a huge hole was formed, and the cockpit was destroyed together. Boom. The severely damaged Venom Mech exploded violently. Cobra died. As a human being, you are willing to become a foreign race and help the tyrants to commit atrocities. You deserve to be killed. Xia Xingchen's cold voice rang out from the Xia Mecha. Silence. The already desolate and lonely R-14 star was even more silent at this moment. Everyone inside the entire crater looked at Xia Xingchen, who was driving the Xia Mecha. A-level Mecha Master Cobra, killed with one punch. The Venom Mecha was punched through from the chest to the back by Xia Xingchen. What kind of power is this? The shipborne laser cannon on the starship is only this powerful. Your mecha is also equipped with 3 paints. Medusa's heart was cold. I saw it clearly just now. When you punched, 3 paint patterns on your body flashed for a moment. That's right. Xia Xingchen sighed. The enhanced skills of the 3-piece set. The power is really extraordinary. Awesome. My Gorgon is also equipped with excellent quality paint. You are qualified to be my opponent, Medusa said coldly. There is also a difference between painted mechas and unpainted mechas. The performance of mecha equipped with 3 sets of fine paint and 2 sets of ordinary paint is not at the same level. Although the Cobra mecha is very strong, the Venom mecha is not weak either. But compared with the Xia mecha equipped with fine paint, it is still a level lower. Only I can fight him. You to retreat, Medusa growled. The Gorgon mecha waved a huge trident and stabbed at the Xia mecha. Swish. Xia Xingchen used the subtle skill, and the Xia mecha moved slightly to avoid the fierce attack of the trident. Petrification. While the trident blocked the Xia mecha's body, the Gorgon's eyes flashed, and a petrifying ray shot out, hitting the right leg of the Xia mecha. Xia Xingchen, you are nothing but this. Medusa's lips curled up slightly, her eyes full of contempt. Once my petrification ability hits, it will instantly spread to the whole body. Within 3 minutes, your mecha will all turn into stone. No need for you to explain. I already knew it. Xia Xingchen raised his eyebrows and smiled, without any panic on his face. Xia mecha has been hit by your petrification ray before, but it is still fine now, not turned into stone. You know everything? Medusa's pretty face flashed with astonishment. That's right, I know all your tricks. Xia Xingchen concentrated his mind and focused his mental power on the location where the petrification ray concentrated on the Xia mecha. Soon, the petrification subsided and the mecha returned to its original appearance. Petrification, turning steel into stone, changing the original properties of matter and reconstructing the matter itself. Xia Xingchen smiled. If you were a celestial being, I might still believe that you have this ability. However, you are not. Your so-called petrification is actually the same as freezing. It is nothing more than using mental power to curb the irregular movement of steel particles and temporarily inactivate the particles. As long as my mental power is strong enough, I can make the petrification disappear. Chapter 875, A Man's Romance. So what if you know your mental power level is only 40? How can it be stronger than mine? Medusa looked up at Xia Xingchen, and then the Gorgon mecha held the trident with both hands and suddenly slashed at the Xia mecha. Boom. This trident is an A-level weapon. When it is swung, it makes a dull thunderous sound, which is extremely powerful and carries a terrifying oppressive force. Swish. The Xia mecha slightly turned sideways and used its subtle power again to avoid Medusa's powerful attack. At the same time, the Gorgon's eyes flashed again, and 3 petrifying rays were shot out in succession. Obviously, Medusa intended to use her powerful mental power to suppress Xia Xingchen. S-level mecha master, it's really tricky. Xia Xingchen frowned slightly, waved his hand to cast a telekinetic wall, and blocked the petrifying rays in midair. The next attack of the trident has come again. The performance of the Gorgon mecha is not inferior to that of the Xia mecha in terms of strength, speed and agility. Moreover, the trident attack and petrification ray were perfectly coordinated. In addition, Medusa's mental power level was 10 levels higher than Xia Xingchen's. If the fight continued like this, Xia Xingchen would definitely lose. Giles and others watched from the side. Their palms were full of cold sweat. Every time the Xia mecha dodged the trident attack with extremely dangerous movements, they couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. However, anyone could see that Xia Xingchen was no match for Medusa, not to mention the difference in the mental power level of the mecha masters. Just talking about the A-level weapon trident in the hands of the Gorgon mecha and the petrification ray shot out of the pupil, the Xia mecha could not resist it. The Xia mecha was not equipped with weapons, and this disadvantage was too great. Xia Xingchen's use of enhancement could greatly improve the performance of the mecha, and he could even kill a mercenary fleet with his fists. However, that was only possible because of the mecha's performance suppression. Facing the Gorgon, which was also well painted, Xia Xingchen would not be so stupid as to use the mecha's fists to resist the A-level weapon trident. Even if it could barely withstand a few attacks, the Xia mecha would definitely be damaged. Divine weapon. Xia Xingchen certainly would not let his disadvantage expand. He shouted and focused his mental power on the black bracelet on his wrist. Swish. Or 3-meter long white fog appeared on the right hand of the Xia mecha and began to change the shape of the weapon. Two-handed sword, giant axe, long knife, long spear, stick. The mental power condensed into the shape of 18 kinds of weapons, constantly changing in the hands of the Xia mecha. What will my magic weapon be? Xia Xingchen's heart was filled with anticipation. According to the information provided by Liziamin, the magic weapon system will condense into weapons of different appearances according to the different properties of the mecha master's mental power. Kirissa is a lightning long sword, and Saint Peter is a huge frost two-handed sword. Xia Xingchen estimated that his magic weapon is likely to be an ancient Chinese longsword. After all, Xia Xingchen's previous mecha weapon was a long sword. Of course, it could also be other weapons. The magic weapon system will condense into the most suitable weapon for the mecha master according to the mecha master's mental power. The thick white telekinetic fog is still changing. What exactly is my weapon? Xia Xingchen had a vague feeling in his heart. He already felt that his weapon should not be a long sword. But what exactly is it? The shape of the weapon represents Xia Xingchen's deepest desire. The magic weapon system is still constantly exploring and constantly feeling Xia Xingchen's heart. What the hell? Medusa was slightly surprised to see the thick mist of telekinesis coming out of the hands of Xia mecha. She felt a strong sense of threat in her heart. She quickly reacted and knew that she could not let the white mist in the hands of Xia mecha condense into shape. She immediately clenched the trident with both hands and chopped it down. Boom. The trident exuded a red light and pressed down mightily. Xia mecha finally raised his right hand, and the weapon in his hand collided with the trident. Squeak. A tooth-grinding roar. Brilliant sparks flying everywhere, spinning vigorously like a black hole. The huge trident was bounced away by a huge force. Everyone was stunned, looking at the weapon that appeared in the right hand of Xia mecha. It was not a sword, nor a knife, not an axe, nor a hammer. It was not one of the 18 weapons. It was not even any weapon in the scope of human common sense. However, it represents Xia Xingchen's deep desire. The weapon that Xia Xingchen has been most familiar with since he was 3 years old. In the right hand of the Xia mecha, there was a cone-shaped object that kept rotating. A drill. That's right, it was a huge drill that was 3 meters long and more than 2 meters in diameter, rotating rapidly. Everyone was stunned. The weapon I longed for in my heart turned out to be a drill. Xia Xingchen stared at the drill in the hand of the Xia mecha with his eyes fixed, and his blood was boiling. In the dark mine, the thin boy held the huge power arm with both hands, with a firm look, staring at the rapidly rotating drill at the end of the power arm, and his body was subjected to the strong vibration caused by the rotation of the drill. After mining this piece of mine wall, I can earn enough money to let my dad have a good meal. The boy's forehead was covered with crystal sweat. All the boy's hopes were concentrated on the rotating drill. All the boy's dreams were in the bright starry sky above the dark mine. The drill carried the boy's dreams. The drill is my weapon. Xia Xingchen smiled slightly, raised his head, and stared at the huge drill on the right hand of the Xia mecha that was spinning rapidly and flying sparks. This is a man's romance. What kind of equipment is this that can actually materialize mental power and condense it into a mecha weapon? Bat was secretly surprised. It's the divine weapon system of the Tang Dynasty group, the only equipment that can be called an S-level weapon. Medusa was knowledgeable, with greedy flames burning in her eyes, and her slender tongue kept licking her lips. Divine weapon system. Is it the legendary weapon? There are less than 100 divine weapon systems in the entire galaxy, and they are all concentrated in the hands of legendary mecha masters and S-level mecha masters. Each one is extremely expensive, as high as hundreds of billions of star coins. Medusa's man unicorn, his tall and strong body trembled slightly because of greed. The magic weapon system is well known. For any mecha master, it is the top weapon system. Just relying on the magic weapon system to condense into the most suitable weapon for the mecha master according to the mecha master's mental power. This is an advantage that other weapons cannot replace. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.